And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Mayers versus Reedy. Step forward, please.
20-year-old hospital patient transporter Terrence Mayers is suing his ex-girlfriend, 21-year-old clothing salesperson Nicole Reedy, for breaking an apartment lease. Nicole is countersuing, claiming she paid Terrence's bills while he was unemployed.
Mr. Mayers, you and Miss Reedy had a relationship and decided to move into an apartment together. You signed the 6-month lease. According to your complaint, the defendant moved out 2 months shy of the 6 months. Is that right?
Correct.
And you want her to be responsible for her portion of the lease because you moved in together with the understanding that you would each be responsible for 50% of the bills.
Correct.
In addition, you want her to be responsible for some furniture that was purchased, I assume purchased for this apartment.
Correct.
You claim that the furniture was purchased because the defendant wanted the furniture, so you purchased it on your credit card.
Right.
You have the furniture.
In storage, yes, I do.
But you want her to pay for it because she wanted it.
Right.
Miss Reedy has a counterclaim. She says for the majority of the time that you lived together, you weren't working. She paid the bills. So she's got a counterclaim, is that right?
Yes.
When did you move out?
I moved out in May, but I still paid that rent. We both did not physically move out until June, the beginning of June.
Okay, so nobody paid June's rent and nobody paid July's rent.
I paid June's. The lease actually goes through August.
So it's really just July and August.
Right.
2 months, not paid. Where were you working in February of 2003?
I was working for Manpower, and I have a letter stating the dates that I was employed through them.
Let me see the letter. Okay, so you worked for them until March of 2003.
Correct.
Who did you work for after March?
In May, I began working for...
Just a second. So you didn't work for anybody in April?
No, ma'am.
Who paid the rent in April?
I borrowed money from my older brother, and...
Show me.
I don't have that with me.
You weren't coming to a dance today, so you were coming to court. So who paid May's rent?
We both paid. We split it.
Could you split it if you weren't working?
I borrowed money from my brother.
Again? And you have no proof of that, is that right?
No, ma'am.
All right, let's talk about April and May's rent. Do you have proof that you paid it?
I have proof for May's.
That'll do.
These are, I had to do money orders, and the rent was $5.95. There's one for $4.95 and one for $100.
Now, let's talk about the rent. He says he borrowed money from his brother. Is that true?
No, it is not. That is a lie.
Who paid the rent?
I did.
When he wasn't working?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Mayers, I want you to start off with this premise, sir. The premise is that I do not believe you borrowed money from your brother to contribute to the rent. Okay?
Okay.
That she paid the rent for those 2 months because you were out of work. Now, there are 2 months left remaining on the lease. That's pretty much a quid pro quo. Pay it. We understand each other?
Right.
Good. Now let's talk about the furniture.
We both, when we first moved into the apartment, we went down to IKEA and we picked out furniture. So we went to go apply for an IKEA card. She was denied. She had overextended her credit, so I ended up having to put it on mine. And when she moved out, you know, I tried to, you know, work things out to where we both pay this bill off, but she ignored my phone calls. And
well, but you have the furniture.
She didn't want it. When she moved out, she just took the bed and that was it.
Go ahead, I'll hear you.
When we moved out, I stated to him that whoever takes the furniture should take the bill, and he told me he was taking everything.
Now, Miss Reedy, I'm going to get to your counterclaim. You're entitled to nothing, and I'm going to tell you why. Because you wrote in your answer, we lived together as a married couple. He was out of work for a while. You covered the rent. You moved out, he's got to pay the last 2 months. That's a wash. You understand?
Yes.
So, you got the furniture?
Yes, ma'am.
You pay the bill. She covered 2 months when you were out of work. You cover the last 2 months.
There's still utilities and add on like the water bill and things
Listen
like
to me.
that.
For the months that you were out of work, she paid those bills.
She didn't pay all the bills by herself.
Well, sir, listen to me. You're not going to find a court that's going to go over an $11.95 bill and say, well, she didn't pay the whole thing. You were out of work. She covered the bills, because I don't believe that you borrowed money from your brother. When she moved out, and she had no right to move out, sticking you with the rent, if in fact you're going to pay the rent to the landlord and not make him chase you all over town, you cover that bill, because she did when you needed her. Right? Goodbye. Have a happy life.
Yes, case number 226 on the calendar, the matter of Fiala versus Parton. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ladies, have seats.
You're home and your girlfriend goes out to a party. You get a call from her and she said, do me a favor, come pick me up. I'm ready to go home. So far, correct?
Correct.
You're really irritated because you didn't go to the party because you had to get up early to go to work in the morning. And so, but is this the girlfriend?
Yes.
But you got up, you got out of bed, you got into your car, and you went to pick her up at the party. The defendant was at the party. Wasn't your house, was it?
It was my house.
It was your house. According to your complaint, for some reason, he got angry and kicked and dented your car.
Correct.
How many times did he kick your car?
There's 2 visible dents.
He kicked it twice.
Correct.
Mr. Parton says that he did, in fact, put his hands on your car. But he put his hands on your car because you were in a really foul mood and you tried to run him over. And he put his hands on the hood of your car in order to sort of give himself a little leverage to bounce off the car so that you wouldn't kill him, right?
Exactly.
So it was self-defense that you put your hands on the car.
Correct.
And didn't cause any damage.
Correct.
Let's start with date, time, and place. The date this happened, sir.
August 2nd,
Time you got the call from your girlfriend.
2 a.m.
Was it the plan for her to call you to come pick you up?
Yes, the plan was for her to...
Call you and you
Call
were
me.
going to come and get her.
Yeah.
This was an important party, I assume.
Not important to me.
Were you going to work the next day?
Yes.
What day of the week was this?
This was a Saturday morning.
And what kind of work were you doing on Sunday?
I'm a morning stalker.
A morning stalker?
Yeah, S-T-O-C-K, not A-L-K.
Thank you. Jessica, this was an important party?
Not that important.
Important enough to get him out of bed when he has to go to work in the morning to come and pick you up?
Yes.
Oh. You think twice about marrying this girl, right? Would you do me that favor? Just think twice about it. She's not wrapped too tight. Or at least pretty immature. She got you up 2 o'clock in the morning. You got into your car. It was a car?
Truck.
Truck. What kind of truck was it?
Ford Ranger.
And what did you do?
I was wearing just what I wear to bed, just football shorts, and I threw a sweatshirt on. I planned on going from my house to the party, drive her back up to her house, and then go down to work, so I had my shoes and stuff in the back of my truck.
What time do you have to be at work?
5 o'clock in the morning.
What'd you plan on doing from 2 to 5?
Probably going over to her house and just waiting there.
Well, that gives you a little extra impetus. Okay. So what happened when you got to the party?
I had showed up and
How come you and I are the only ones who get it? I don't know either. We've been together too long. Go ahead.
I didn't know where her house was, so I had called Jen a couple of times because I believe her cell phone was out of service. So I called Jen to get the...
Who's Jen?
Jen is this lady over here. Called Jen a couple of times to get the instructions to the house. By the time I was talking to Jen, I mean, everybody went to the party to get drunk. So everybody there was drunk. So I was talking to her when she was drunk. She wasn't really making any sense. And then she brought up something about our relationship that was like nothing to do with what we were talking about. So
What'd she say?
The fact that me and Jessica were having relationship problems. She said she didn't want to talk to me about it because she didn't like me right then or something. She said, even though I hate you, you know, I still have you come pick up Jessica or something like that. I forget what the actual words were.
How old are all these people? How old are you?
I'm 20.
And she?
18.
And this one?
18.
And this one?
21.
What state do you live in?
California.
What's the drinking age here?
21.
21.
21.
Any of these people drinking at your house?
Is
Is not an answer. Is not an answer.
Well, I'm sure that there's definitely people drinking there, but...
No, I said any of these underage people drinking at your house is what I asked you.
Not that I recall, no. I don't remember. I don't remember seeing either one of them with a cup in their hand.
Could you pick your pants up a little bit? I'm afraid they're going to fall off.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So that got heated, and I told Jen to shut up. I told her just plain out to be quiet. I
Don't even tell her to be quiet. You told her to shut up.
Right. I told her to.
Did you use any expletives deleted before you said shut up?
Yes.
That I believe.
Okay. Well.
And I'm impressed by the fact that you actually understood what I was saying. Go ahead.
So I told her to shut up, and by that time I'd hung up the phone and I found out where I was going. I pulled up, and there was probably, counting the two girls, there was probably 5 or 6 people like standing on the curb waiting there, and they all had drinks in their hands. I had my door unlocked.
No, he only had a drink in one hand. He was holding his pants up with the other. Go ahead.
So I pulled up. I had the door unlocked for Jessica because I saw she was standing on the curb. Before she could walk to the car, another guy jumped in front of her, opened up the door, and said, do you want to stick around and party with us? And I said, I got to go to work in 2 hours, so I don't want to, and I really didn't want to hang out with the crowd in the first place. That's why I wasn't there.
I want to know what you said. Did you say no, thank you, but thanks for the invitation?
No.
What did you say? Come on.
They said, do you want to stick around? I'm like, no, I got to go to work in an hour.
Okay. That's what you said.
That's what I said.
Nothing more hostile than that.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
So somebody said, what's his problem? And I looked over to the side, and Jessica was pulling the guy away from my door because he was advancing into my truck. Somebody hit my window from this side, and then the kick started coming in here. Jessica got in the car. I revved my engine. I took off forward because I had never taken my foot off the clutch. I was there for probably maybe 15 seconds. So my first initial thing to do was make some noise, so like nobody's ripping in my car, and so I.
They had already started to hit your car.
Yeah, well, I mean, ripping me out of my car and attacking me because I'm in my night clothes. I had.
Well, no, so far nobody had touched you. Is that right?
They were advancing towards my car, and the other guy was pulling on my handle, saying, "Open the door." Said,
you just added that in. Go ahead. Keep going.
I'm sorry. So she got in the car, I revved my engine, and then backed out of there and went home, and that was that.
How do you know that he kicked your car twice?
I watched him do it.
Can I see the marks on your car?
I think it's funny that he said he pushed off the front of my truck because even though there is a dent on the front of my truck that looks like a footprint, there's also a dent on the rear window that's a footprint. So if he was putting his feet in 2 places that are 6 feet apart to kick off my truck.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
He comes up the hill like this, and the tire goes over the curb, and I put my hands up to deflect it. That's right where my hands would have gone.
I'll pay for my other fender if you can do that.
That's
too,
right where that's right where it would have gone. If I can?
Yeah.
I can. I guarantee you I can.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Danny Fiala says his girlfriend's friend, Josh Parton, kicked dents into the side of his truck.
Now, your girlfriend, after she got off the phone with Mr.
Fiala.
She came in and told you that he had cursed at her. Is that right?
Correct.
You are?
Jennifer?
Jennifer. Jennifer and Jessica. I got to keep, right? Got to keep these straight. Step up here. Jessica.
Jennifer.
Jennifer. I feel like that. The hair the same. You're not twins, are you?
No.
When you told Mr. Parton that you had had a conversation with the plaintiff, what did you tell him that the plaintiff said to you?
I said that he didn't want to come up and that he told me that he was going to, like, beat me up or something. I don't really remember exactly, but I remember he was saying mean things to me.
He said mean things to you?
Yeah, because he was in a bad mood and I was bringing up stuff I shouldn't have brought up.
And did he curse at you?
I believe so.
And did he threaten you?
Yes.
And you told that to your boyfriend?
Yes.
Before he arrived, is that right?
Yes.
Where were you when you took the call from the plaintiff? Were you inside his apartment or outside?
I was walking down the walkway.
What were you doing?
Talking on the phone to him, because I knew he was about to pull up.
He called first. When he called you the first time, you were in the house.
Oh, yes. Well,
pay attention. Now, why were you walking outside when you answered the phone the second time?
To walk Jessica down to Danny's truck because I knew that he was pulling up.
Why were all these other people with you?
I asked Josh to come.
Why?
To walk with me and to introduce him. And then his friends just followed. I didn't ask them to come.
When you asked, so you just asked Josh to come to introduce him?
Yes.
Because you hadn't had any bad words with him yet, right?
Correct.
Actually, she wanted me to go down there and introduce myself and make him feel comfortable to want to come inside and stay, because she wanted Jessica to stay longer.
But by the time he got there, your girlfriend had already told you that he had cursed at her, correct?
Well, yeah, beforehand.
That he had threatened her? right?
Right.
That he made her feel bad, right?
That's what she told me, right? But at the same time,
And that he did all those things. And you're telling me that you greeted him when he pulled up in the truck and wanted to introduce yourself to him and make him feel comfortable so that he would come back to the party. Is that what you said?
even he said that was the first thing that we said to him when he came up, right? I mean, because whether or not she's being mean to her on the phone, if she asked him to go down there and make someone feel comfortable to want to come in and chill, then why would I not?
She
do
wasn't
that?
asking you to make him feel comfortable anymore after he cursed at her and threatened her that he was going to beat her up, Mr. Parton. What are you kidding? All right. Now, how many people came downstairs?
It was me, her, Jessica, and two of my other friends.
Two of your other friends. What are their names?
Josh.
Is not an answer.
Josh and Ryan.
How do you know Ryan?
He lives next door.
How old is he?
19 or 20.
And Josh, how do you know Josh?
Well, he was next door too.
Josh work or go to school?
Doesn't do either.
How old is he?
At least 21, because you can buy alcohol. He's at least 21.
So you had two people there who could buy alcohol, you and Josh, is that right?
And many other, probably everyone
No,
else.
you just told me that there were, I asked you who was there, you told me. One,
No, you said
two,
who went down
three,
to the car.
Who went downstairs to the car.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
There was more people
were.
inside, that was what I'm
There
saying.
were you, 21, the owner of the premises where the alcohol was served. Two, Josh, not the owner of the premises where the alcohol was served, and two minors
Right.
who had both been drinking, right?
Yes.
What were you drinking?
Beer.
What else? Because you hesitated for a minute. What else?
Well, just beer.
Why would you hesitate if I said, what are you drinking? You said,
Because I had to think about it. I don't remember I've drank another stuff that one night was just beer.
what were you drinking?
Beer.
Anything else?
I had a Bloody Mary.
So there was other liquor there other than just beer. Now, why don't you explain to me, Mr. Parton, how it came about that you put your hands on the plaintiff's car?
Well, that's funny that you asked, because that's the last thing that he forgot to mention in his little statement, was that after she did get inside the car, he backed up and then came charging at us at least twice, trying to hit us. His tire came over the curb and tried to hit us.
Really?
So, like you said in the beginning, if someone's coming at you, I'm going to put my hands out to deflect myself, and that happens to be on the right side. On the, if you look on the picture, I was standing on my sidewalk. It goes down like this. If he comes up the hill like this, then if he's comes and the tire goes over the curb and I put my hands out to deflect it, that's right where my hands would
I'll pay
have
for
gone.
my other fender if you can do that.
That's
too,
right
with
where
your hand.
that's right where it would have gone. If I can?
Yeah.
I can. I guarantee you I can.
Step up. Did you see your boyfriend try to run anybody over that night?
He did like a burnout. Sorry.
What's a burnout?
Like you rev the engine and to like get them away from his truck.
Yes.
And then he went forward and then he reversed and we left.
He went forward
At us.
at them.
Well, he was, I don't know, revving. It was like on a hill and it'd stick.
Did you see anyone surround the car when you got in the car and make a move towards your boyfriend to try to get him out of the car?
Yes.
Who did that?
I'm not sure. I didn't know them.
Well, there weren't that many people down there, madam.
I just
According
remember I
to-
pulled one guy out of the truck because I wanted to get in the passenger seat. I don't know who he was, though.
Who was that?
I don't have no idea. I don't have any idea.
Well, it's either Josh or Ryan.
I don't remember. It wasn't me. I mean, I'm the one that's being sued. If someone else is climbing in their car, you should be suing them, right?
How much did you have to drink?
Shoot. Honestly, I don't remember.
And how was it that Josh and Ryan accompanied you outside?
Maybe they wanted to help me introduce myself to him. Maybe they were happy to just be out smoking a cigarette and someone pulls up and I honestly don't remember. I didn't tell if what you're looking for is if I asked them to accompany me. That's not. I did not ask them to accompany me. I swear to God, I didn't.
Maybe she did.
Well, I did. I know I didn't.
Was she crying when she spoke to you about how nasty he was on the phone?
Nope.
Just annoyed.
The last thing that she said was not. He's calling me names. The last thing that she said to me was go out there, introduce yourself to him, and make him feel comfortable so that Jessica will want to stay longer.
Somebody who just cursed her and threatened to beat her up? That's what she said.
That's what she said.
She must have had a lot to drink.
Or just wanted her friend to stay.
Can I see the estimate for this dent on the side of your car? Mr. Parton, there was a big party going on. Everybody at the party had had a little too much to drink. I'm not saying that I condone somebody revving up their car, but I believe that your girlfriend told you that she had been insulted by the plaintiff. He's the only sober one there. He's coming there for the sole purpose of picking up his girlfriend. He hasn't been partying all night. His car got damaged. He says it got damaged as a result of you kicking it. You say it got damaged as a result of you putting your hands on the car. I have to make a judgment as to who I believe and whether or not this damage to this car, in my judgment, can be done or was done by somebody who's pushing off with their hand or somebody who kicked it. I vote for the kick. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,800. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think he's made.
Obviously, that dent wasn't put there by a hand pushing off my truck, so
I think he was scared the whole time.
just don't hang around with these kind of people.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Daggett versus Martinez. Step forward, please.
Teacher Marcy Daggett is suing dog groomer Angelina Martinez for the value of a Yorkshire Terrier. Marcy says while Angelina was pet sitting, the dog ran away.
Miss Daggett, I assume you knew Miss Martinez before you asked her to dog sit for your 2 Yorkies. Is that right?
This was the 3rd time that she'd watched them, and
She'd watched them before, so
right.
You brought the dogs over there?
Yes.
For how long?
It was an indefinite time.
What do you mean indefinite? I don't understand.
Because our dogs had been barking and bothering the neighbors, and we weren't really sure what we should do with our dogs or how to train them or what to do with them. And Angelina was going to watch them while we decided what to do with them.
And according to your complaint, one of the dogs got out. Or one of the dogs is gone, lost, stolen, dug a hole under the fence, according to the defendant, and is gone. And you want to be compensated for that dog.
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Martinez?
Yes.
What happened to her dog?
At 4:30, I let the dog and 2 of my dogs outside to go potty, and 5:15, I brought them back inside, and I couldn't find Zoe. And she's real small, so sometimes she runs in and, you know, hides underneath the bed or under there. So I thought she had run in the house. And I had to go to my son's back to school night, so we left real quick and then came back and started looking for Zoe. And it was about an hour time lapse from that. And we started looking for her, we realized that she wasn't in the house at all, or in the backyard.
So when you didn't see her, you went out anyway.
Yeah.
This is such an easy case. They should all be this easy. How much did you pay for Zoe?
$850.
You don't have a bill of sale, do you?
I have the canceled check.
Okay, I'd see it. How old was she?
Just over a year, about a year and 3 months.
Okay, you want to explain to me why, Miss Martinez, you don't feel as if you're responsible minimally for what Miss Daggett paid for her dog?
Well, I have a copy of the purchase agreement of her dog, and there is no price for it.
Well, let me see it. Go ahead.
And so I offered to replace the dog with another dog of greater value. At that time, she was not ready for another dog.
I have a check dated the same day as the puppy sale agreement. The check is a canceled check for $850.
I also have a bill of sale for the male that she bought the same day, and it says $680.
Well, that may be, but females are usually more expensive.
Right.
So you mean it's just the cost of the dog that you question, is that right?
Right.
Okay, well, don't question it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $850, that's all.
Parties are excused. Your Honor, this is case number 269 on the calendar in the matter of Dubois versus Clevenger. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
All right, I'm a little confused, so I have to try to clarify a few issues in my own mind. Ms. Dubois, the defendant is the former wife of your current boyfriend. Mm-hmm. And you were living with your boyfriend, is this boyfriend?
Mark.
In a home that was previously the marital home, is that right? Miss Clevenger filed an application for a protective order on behalf of herself and her daughter after an alleged incident involving you and her teenage daughter. That was filed in what month and year?
September 2002.
Now, Miss Clevenger was in fact given a protective order for 12 months?
12 months.
And when was that protective order signed?
September 25th, 2002.
That order excluded you from the house?
When the children were there.
When the children were there. It excluded you when the daughter was there. Sometime later, you went to court to try to have the protective order vacated.
Dismissed, yeah.
When was that?
I'm not sure, maybe a month or two later.
7 months later, ma'am.
I thought, according to the papers that I read, it was in March of 2003.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in March of 2003, you went to court to try to have the protective order vacated.
Yeah.
At that time, the judge told you, you can't have it vacated. You have to wait until it's over, which is another 4 or 5 months, whatever it is. While you were both in court outside near the clerk's office, there was an incident, according to you, involving Mr. and Mrs. Clevenger, but you claim that she filed a violation petition against you, claiming that you had in fact threatened her. Were you arrested?
I was.
And you were taken into custody. Ultimately, that charge was dismissed. Now, am I correct that what you are suing for is not the original protective order, but suing for the false charge that you claim that the defendant made with regard to the violation of the order of protection?
Actually, both.
Well, you can't file for both. So that's what I have to explain to you right from the get-go. A judge has granted her an order of protection. I do not look behind that to see whether or not the judge made a mistake or not. I'm not an appeals court for a judge. If the subsequent case after the March incident, when the judge denied the application, and I will find out what that is about, that is something that I can hear. Now, Ms. Clevenger has a counterclaim. Your counterclaim says that because she filed the petition to vacate the order of protection, you had to get a lawyer. Then you had to go back to court with regard to this second case, and you had to miss a lot of days' work because of all of this order of protection stuff. And that's what you're suing for. It's nonsense. You initiated the protective order. You don't get paid for that. Do you understand? Yes. Okay. I mean, I don't know what else there is. You have no claim for anything else.
I wrote down there for strangling my daughter. My daughter's been in intense therapy. Heroin was shot into her.
Listen to me.
Okay.
You didn't say anything about heroin in your case here. You say that your daughter was held down and strangled by the plaintiff.
No, she was shoved and she was picked up by her throat.
Okay. I'm not hearing it.
Okay.
What's your daughter's name?
Sydney Clevenger.
Do you see Sydney, sir?
Yes, I do.
How often? Stand up.
Yeah, I should stand up then.
How often?
Pretty much every weekend.
Okay. She comes to your home?
Yes.
Does she have any contact with the plaintiff?
No, by order.
By order of the court?
Yes.
She's fine?
Very fine.
She's fine with you?
Very much so.
And your daughter is a teenager?
Yes.
She knows that you have a relationship with Ms. Dubois?
Yes.
She knows that she lives with you when Sydney isn't there?
She actually does not live with me.
She doesn't live with you anymore?
No.
But she knows that you are still in a relationship?
Yes.
And she doesn't hold that against you and say to you, by God, she strangled me, she assaulted me, how could you possibly have anything to do with it? She doesn't say that to you?
Occasionally she does at the beginning of this incident, but it's gone away pretty much.
Were you there when this alleged incident took place?
No.
These two ladies didn't get along?
My daughter and her?
Yeah.
At her instigating.
Well, that's what you say.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not hearing it. I'm not hearing your counterclaim with regard to this strangulation. She's fine. Now, let's get to your lawsuit with regard to the false charge that inspired the violation of the protective order, which caused you to be arrested. Let's get to the arrest itself. I want you to tell me where that took place.
At my place of work.
Who came to your place of employment?
2 sheriffs.
Had you gotten any previous notice of it?
No, I did not, Your Honor.
And when did they come to your place of employment?
This original supposed breaking was 2 weeks after the September event. And then in March was when I was arrested.
You mean the alleged breach of the protective order was in September?
Yes. The same day we went to court on the 25th when she got the original permanent.
Can I see the complaint for the violation? Ms. Clevenger, the date you went to court on the petition for a protective order, you claimed that after you left court, she violated the order.
Yeah, it's all right here.
You claimed that she violated the order.
They both violated it in the clerk's office.
Did you have a protective order against him?
There's been one against him.
Was it ongoing at that time?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So you filed against both of them?
Not on September 25th. It was the protection order was filed for Eden Clevenger, Sydney Clevenger, and myself. It was signed on September 25th.
Listen to what I'm saying to you, madam. The violation that you allege happened the same date that you got a final order of protection.
Yes.
And it happened outside of the courtroom, inside the clerk's office. And it is your claim that both of them had orders of protection against them at that time, both your former husband and his girlfriend.
I know I got one that day for Miss Dubois, and we went up to the clerk's office.
So he didn't have one?
I believe he did from a while back, from March.
Did you or not?
No, I didn't.
No.
I thought we did have one.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Well, she used the F word.
Really? Let me see whether you say to the police that she said that to you. You don't. Do you mean this is all coming back to you as you're standing here now?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Deborah Dubois says her fiancé's ex-wife, Vicki Clevenger, falsely accused her of assaulting her daughter. Deborah also claims Vicki falsely charged her with violating a restraining order.
The only thing that this police report says is that the police contacted Patty in the clerk's office, and she said she and Susie had heard Clevenger begin to talk loudly, telling someone to go away and leave her alone. So it's clear that nobody in the clerk's office, based upon the police report, could verify anything except that you were talking loudly. This was in September. Does anybody know why they did not come to arrest this lady until March?
I do.
Why?
Because the address that was placed on the police report was my old address when she knew full well I lived with Mark. So the summons got delivered to the house, and I never received it. The post office returned it, and then since I didn't go to court, they issued a bench warrant, I guess, and picked me up when they figured out where I was.
Between September, when you filed this,
On September 25th.
and March, did you have any other contact with the plaintiff?
No.
So it's clear that the plaintiff was not doing anything to bother you between September and March. Is that right?
She bothered me in the clerk's office that day.
Did you hear what I said? I want you to pay attention to what I said.
Yes.
Between September and March, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, she doesn't have anything to do with you. She's not in the house when your daughter is there. So why didn't you withdraw this complaint that you had made?
I had no idea that they forwarded it to the prosecutor's office, and the only address on the police report is the 35528 where she was living at. I never gave a wrong address. I've never known where she's lived.
Yes, you did. You knew she lived, just a second.
Yeah, and it's on the police report. 355.
You knew she lived with your former husband.
It's on the front of the police report, the address. I gave the detective.
Okay. I just want to know whether between September and March you had any other conversations with any members of the police department or the prosecutor's office.
I did not get a call from the prosecutors till March. The advocate's office called me for domestic violence.
This was before she was arrested.
I'm not sure if it was before or after. I think it all happened after she was, because they sent me a letter in the mail. So I had no idea that they were even pursuing this.
Tell me what happened in the clerk's office.
I went up to the clerk's office and I was standing in line. They proceeded to walk into the clerk's office.
Because each of you had to get a copy of the protective order.
Right, and I was like I was in line in front of them. And then I had to scoot over to another line, and they were verbally abusing me.
Tell me what they said.
They said I was a nutcase, I'm a psycho, they just really verbally abused me.
Who's they?
These two.
I want you to tell me who said what.
Mark Clevenger and Deborah Dubois were standing in line humiliating me.
That's a conclusion. I want you to tell me what he said.
You'll never get the kids. This is not going to work. This is going to be dismissed. You're a nutcase. You're a psychopath. Nobody's ever going to believe you.
Okay, so that's what he said.
Well,
now I want you to tell me what she said.
Do I have to say these words?
Yes.
She called me a psycho. This will never. They both just.
No. Don't confuse one with the other. Listen to me very carefully.
Okay.
She didn't repeat exactly the same thing he said, so I assume.
She used the F word.
And what did she say?
You're.
Really? Let me see.
I did not say.
Let me see whether you say to the police in your complaint that she said that to you. You don't.
I don't want to use that word.
You told the police that they told her you're a nutcase, you're a psycho, this will never work, you'll never get the kids.
And
you didn't say the F word. You didn't say anything else. When this first happened, September 25th, you mean this is all coming back to you as you're standing here now? No. They may have said things to you. They are not a unit. If your ex-husband was saying these things to you and they were standing together, they cannot be construed to be one person. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Good. And I don't believe the other baloney that you just gave me because it's not in your police report that you filed the same day as the incident happened.
Too humiliated to file.
I don't believe you, Miss Clevenger.
Okay.
I don't believe that because I believe that if you are smart enough to go for a protective order, you list everything that happens. You want the police and the court to know the most venal of things that happened, so you would report it. It's not that you were humiliated. It's not that you were frightened, because you knew to go to the police immediately, and you would tell them everything. Now, so don't embellish to me. What happened is she made this complaint because she got very angry at what went on in the clerk's office. And I'm going to tell you something. I believe that it probably did. That there were words in the clerk's office, Miss Dubois. I don't know whether the words came from you or came from him. I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit of both. She was angry, so she went to the police. That was in September. They didn't act on it. Unfortunately, somebody had a day when they didn't have a whole lot of work to do, and they found you. I don't know how they found you at work. Do you know how they found you at work?
They went to my original address that she gave them, and my ex-boyfriend said she's at work.
Okay. Now, what happened when you went to court on this violation petition?
It was completely dismissed because she cannot get a domestic violence restraining order against me with her name on it. She could on behalf of the children, but the fact that she added in her name and everything was totally illegal. Can I say one other thing to you?
Sure.
If you notice, the police report was filed 6 hours later in a different police station because she'd found out he was going to take her back to court. So,
listen to me.
All anger.
Listen to me. There were words that transpired in the clerk's office. I believe that one or both of you was so furious and said things that you probably shouldn't have in the clerk's office. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Clevenger?
Absolutely.
Okay. And she seized the moment and acted upon it. Did she do the wrong thing? She should have let it go, because the people that ultimately suffer with regard to that are the children. And I would assume that since you have regular contact with your children, that this has created a strain between the two of you.
I actually have custody of one of my daughters, but...
Which child?
The oldest one, Eden.
How old is Eden?
Just turned 16.
Did you have custody of your daughter, too, for a period of time?
For the past 6 years, full custody.
And it wasn't until after this incident that Sydney went back to her mother, is that right?
Yes, it was a stepping stone to modify the custody.
And so that's been for about a year?
Yes.
That Sydney's been with her mother?
Yes.
Don't throw out her bed.
Oh, I will not. It's already made.
What?
1997, Mark and I resided together till 2002. We shared full custody with each other. I moved out of the house October 2000. Then he moved all these people in the house and then moved her in.
Madam.
He didn't have custody. We shared custody. I lived with him. We were a unit.
Is your older child living with him on a full-time basis?
Yes.
And your younger daughter... Shh. Listen to me very carefully. And your younger daughter, immediately preceding September of 2002, I don't care if it was for an hour or for a week or for a month, she lived with her father.
We shared the kids equally.
I don't believe that. Do you have an order?
Yeah,
I'd like to see the order. Immediately prior to September of 2002.
Yeah, I had him Friday.
Let me.
The order that was set in 97, but we got back together for 6 years.
Did you hear what I said? I said immediately prior to September of 2002. I don't care if it's a week or a month. Let me see the order where you share 50-50 custody.
I was living in the house. We both had 50-50. I moved out.
You are not living in the house in July of 2002, right?
I moved out October 1st, 2001.
You're not paying attention. You're not paying attention. I said immediately preceding September of 2002, you were not living with your former husband, and your daughter was not living with you full time.
She was.
And you said
4 days a week.
And I said, let me see the order.
We never went by the order.
I said, let me see the order.
I don't have that order. I mean, we shared the kids.
I'd like to see the order. Could I see the order, Bird? She has the order.
This is the parenting plan.
Not after.
It's not after. It's what was in effect.
It was. We never went by that.
Can I just see the order, please? This schedule provides that upon enrollment in school, the children shall reside with their father.
That was in 1997.
I don't care what it is. That's what the order is.
But we did.
That's what the order is. No, this is an order where you had full custody of the children. She had visitation. Okay, listen to me. I'm sorry I can't help you. I'm sorry I can't help you for the following reason. She had a right to go in and file for a violation of this protective order because she, in her mind, said, you violated the order by saying nasty things to me. When I say you, she's talking about the cumulative you. And I would assume that both of you had some things to say standing online. I'm not going to revisit that. I think that her violation petition was probably dismissed in the entirety because the order of protection was not for her. It was on behalf of Sydney, who was a minor, and perhaps she didn't understand that. I think she has problem understanding things, period. So I'm sorry that you suffered by virtue of this, but you should have kept your mouth shut in the clerk's office, sir. It would have been the smarter and wiser thing to do, because then she would have had absolutely no basis whatsoever to go in and file this. Ms. Clevenger, you have absolutely no basis to counterclaim, no basis for your lawsuit.
Excuse me, this order was, it says the petitioner and her children on this September 25th.
Can I ask you a question? Are you not hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
I just dismissed her case against you, and I told you that you have no basis to sue her. You were the person who filed for a protective order, and she is perfectly within her rights to try to go into court and say there was no basis for it. I want a rehearing, and if you had to hire a lawyer and lose days from work going into court, you precipitated it. So that's what happens. Goodbye.
Yeah, this is case number 248 on the calendar in the matter of Lassoff versus Hennon. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat, please.
A cute couple. Miss Lassoff, you and the defendant had a very brief relationship. And during that brief relationship, you decided to live together, to room together. He was going to rent a new house.
Correct.
Then the relationship went south, but you still remained friends. And since you hadn't dated very long, according to both of you, you thought that you could make this thing work by just being housemates. Mr. Hennon signed a lease for 1 year. According to him, it was your understanding that you would each pay half the rent in this place and you would live there for the year with him in 2 separate rooms. When did you move in?
June 1st.
And within 3 weeks period of time, according to you, things didn't work out because Mr. Hennon, according to you, made some advances, romantic advances towards you. You said, I wasn't interested. He started to bring other women into the house. According to him, you went crazy. It all got very nasty. So you left after 3 weeks. You want your 1 week's rent prorated because you left after 3 weeks. You say he threw you out. He said he didn't. He said you moved out on your own. And you want back at least half the value of the stuff that you bought for the house, which you say that he kept. Mr. Hennon says that you left voluntarily, and he is counterclaiming for 11 months' rent because he said he signed this lease with the oral understanding, because you didn't have a lease with him, that you were going to live there for a year, right?
Yes.
Got it?
Got it.
That's where we are. All right. Miss Lassoff, I don't want to know about the girls that he brought into the apartment. I don't want to know about his touchy-feely with you. That's for another day. I want to know what happened the day you moved out.
Okay. Well, can I back up a little bit to say how I got kicked out?
Well, tell me how you got kicked out if that was how you left.
We just stopped getting along. You know, we just didn't get along, and he had a temper, a very bad temper. I was very scared every time I was in the house. My hands would shake. He drove me to a point where I didn't eat or sleep for 6 days, and he said, get the F out, you're not on the lease. As I was packing up, he said, when are you out? Because I'm about this close to throwing you out, literally. And I was scared. That wasn't a place where I could live.
Is that what happened?
No, that's not what happened.
Well, tell me what happened.
The relationship obviously went sour, and our friendship went sour. I was constantly, coming home, and she was in my room. She was even sleeping in my room at night on numerous occasions. As she was saying, these, sexual advances.
Sleeping in the room with you?
Yeah, she was sleeping in my room, asking if she could stay in my room with me, and I was just getting tired of her. I couldn't handle it anymore.
So?
I did not throw her out.
No, so you got tired of her, you couldn't take it anymore, and what happened? Look at me. Look at me. Don't make it up. Shh. Don't make it up as you're going. Just continue trying to tell me the truth, because if you don't, I'll annihilate you.
When I told her to get out, was
That's what I want to know. You told her to get out. When?
When she was in my bedroom standing one night,
and she would not leave my room when I had a bunch of friends over, and she would not get out of my room. And I told
So you told her to get out?
After she attacked me.
How did she attack you, sir?
She grabbed my neck and she grabbed my hands, and she cut me with her fingernails.
So you told her to get out?
Right.
So you did throw her out?
I didn't throw her out. I told her to get out of my room.
No. You told her to get out?
I told her to get out.
No. All right, so you told her to get out, and how much after you told her to get out did she get out?
10 days.
Is that right?
I was looking for an apartment the next day, and I was out in, what, a week, not even.
All right. The month's rent that you paid for June is gone. Kiss it goodbye.
Okay.
The security deposit, she gave you a security deposit?
That went to the landlord, not to me.
Well, you're going to get it back, right?
No, because I'm probably going to end up getting evicted because I can't afford the house on my own.
Why don't you get a roommate?
It's kind of hard to find a good roommate, obviously.
No, that's not true.
It's
What
not
efforts
true.
have you made to find a roommate?
I had an ad in the paper. I couldn't really find him. I have a lot of personal belongings that I don't really trust just anybody coming in the house with.
So are you telling me that you have not looked for a roommate, or you
I have. I had an ad in the newspaper.
And what happened?
I had no luck.
Really?
That's not true.
Well, second. You were planning to lease this house before you decided to move in with her. I read your answer.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And how did you propose to pay the rent before you made this arrangement with her?
My brother was going to be my roommate.
Did something happen to him? Did he go to war?
He's in his own lease at an apartment.
Yes, when is it up?
Not till February.
Oh, so then he'll be able to move in with you.
But for the time being, if I
Then
can't...
he'll be able to move in with you. When did he sign his lease?
I don't know exactly.
Well, it's usually a year lease, so if he signed it in February of 2002, which means in June, when you signed this lease, you knew your brother couldn't move in with you. You knew he couldn't move in with you in May, in April, in March.
Right.
Don't give me baloney. You see what I mean when I say I'll annihilate you?
Right.
I don't want you to look foolish,
Right.
so I want you to be able to tell me the truth. You have to find a roommate, sir. A housemate. It's a big house. In any event, this is the drill. How much is your security deposit?
I paid $300. It was $600
You paid $300.
of it. Yes.
Okay. Now, what about this property? So you don't get your month's rent back or any part of it because
Okay.
you left. You get your security deposit back because if he keeps it nice and neat and clean, he's going to get his security deposit back. But now, what personal property do you claim that he has?
We furnished the entire house. Me and him, I have receipts, he has receipts. We split everything. I mean, rugs, paintings for the walls, furniture, just everything you need for a house. And it adds up, it's a lot. And he wouldn't let me take anything. So I basically helped this guy furnish his house. And when I asked for things at the end or for money, he said, I'm not giving you a
Was
dime.
it all paid for? How much did you pay? What was it put on a credit card?
I have my debit card statements, $1,474.31, which we split. So I'm just asking for the $700 from that. And I'm asking, we put $600 worth of speakers around the pool, around the living room area. And he verbally told me, I'll give you half the money for that, and we'll split up all the belongings. And I got nothing.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
The walls were empty. She took about 90% of everything that we did buy.
He wouldn't let me. I tried to. He said, you're not taking it, and locked it in a room.
And later today,
What do you think? I'm crazy? I mean, I'm getting older, but I at least have a span of attention that lasts more than 5 minutes. They don't pay child support.
My oldest daughter's father just started paying child support.
And one's in jail, so he's not paying child support.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jennifer Lassoff says former live-in boyfriend Sean Hennon kicked her out and kept her belongings. Jennifer also says Sean owes her for rent and a security deposit.
I'm listening.
When she left the house, the walls were empty. She took about 90% of everything that we did buy.
What walls were empty?
Like where pictures were, candle holders didn't have candles in them anymore. The cupboards were empty from groceries that I had bought.
Let's talk about furniture.
The couch and everything was hers to begin with.
Did she take it?
Yes.
Okay. And what about the other things?
Other things, she took, like I said, 90% of everything.
Like what did she take? So far I heard candles and pictures.
Pictures, candles.
I heard pictures and candles.
Plants.
What?
I'm trying to remember. Like candles. Plants, different plants we had bought. And also on the $1,400 she's saying for her debit card, she went out and she spent, I think it was approximately $300 or $400 on just her bedroom alone.
Which she took with her.
Right. Which that stuff does not involve me.
But what about all of the things he bought, and I gave him half the money for that? That's what I'm including.
I understand that, Miss Lassoff. That was your foolishness.
I know.
Foolishness. Because there are courts for people who are married and divorced, and then even those are imperfect. because you can't figure out exactly who brought what into the marriage. But we have to deal with that. What's happened is everybody now lives together. Sometimes they live together in a relationship. Even those I don't like to get into and become an arbiter of candles and food and Rice Krispies, which is what you're talking about. But I'm certainly not going to get involved with two people who rent a house. They mix their money in a real mishmash and then come here and ask Bert to try to figure it out. He has other things to do, and so do I. You're getting your security deposit back. You moved out. You took your furniture, right? So you had the ability to take certain things that you claim were yours. Did you take any pictures from the house? Yes or no?
That we bought, no. He wouldn't let me. I tried to. He said, you're not taking it, and locked it in a room. I tried. He wouldn't let me take anything that we bought.
So you took the things when you left. You got a U-Haul it? Somebody came and helped you with a U-Haul?
I had friends help me in a U-Haul.
You're getting $300, which is your security deposit. Your counterclaim for the remaining 11 months on the lease is dismissed. Find a roommate. Got it? Goodbye.
Party's excused. You may step out.
He had a very bad temper, and I was very scared.
Very possessive. I just couldn't get away from her. I couldn't deal with her anymore.
Before that, I thought he was a great guy, and I guess I just brought out the bad side of him. We just did not get along.
She just wouldn't leave me alone.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Keller versus Foster, step forward, please.
26-year-old Jennifer Keller is suing the father of her child, 23-year-old administrative assistant Dario Foster, for rent, car payments, and daycare costs. Dario is countersuing for the return of personal property.
Miss Keller, the defendant is a former boyfriend. You also have a child together with him. According to what I've read, you lived together for a while in an apartment that you leased together with the understanding that you would split expenses and split the rent. Is that right?
Correct.
And it is your claim that he moved out a couple of months shy of the 6-month lease. You want him to be responsible for at least his half of the rent for that period.
Yes.
Mr. Foster says that he was locked out of the apartment.
Yes, ma'am.
By you. Therefore, he's not paying any rent because he doesn't have use of the apartment. And in addition, he gave you half the money that was in a joint account. He pays money for child support, and he's counterclaiming because he says that you kept some of his property.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You signed this lease in May, and when did you have the fight?
July, sorry.
What was the fight about?
Well, previously, Dario and I have been together for a couple of years, and when we first started dating, he didn't tell me he was married. He waited till after we had fornicated before he told me he was married. I told him I couldn't be with a married man, so he went and filed the next day for divorce. So for the last 2 years, we've been together. He's had constant infidelity, things like that. And so when we moved to Florida, we got into a fight because he decided that he wanted to be 24 and be Daytona Beach and go to bars and clubs and hang out with his friends versus being a family.
And he told you that?
Yeah, I came to work one day with no warning whatsoever. Came to work to bring him some money for snacks, and he says, I can't do this.
You know, you're talking too fast. I'm not even following what you're saying. You know, you give me a condensed version of your whole life. You had a fight about what in July or in June?
There was no fight. He just said that he couldn't be a family.
So what did you do immediately thereafter?
I walked up to his commanding officers, and I told them that he has me on this lease. He moved me 1,500 miles from home with myself, and I have 4 children. With the children from their families, from their fathers, from everything. And now I'm stuck here. Plus, he let the bills go, so I told his commanding officers, I need to do something.
They didn't get him to do anything?
Correct.
So what did you do next? You left the base?
Went and filed the hearing to sue him for half the rent, because he told me he was not going to pay the rent.
Did you tell her you weren't going to pay half the rent?
Yes, Your Honor. It was a lot of stuff that led up to that fight the day before that I
Did
left.
you change the locks on the house?
I changed the locks until just before we left for Michigan. And I changed the locks because he said he was going to come in and take all the stuff.
What date did you change the locks?
We went to Michigan the 29th of July, so it's probably 3 days, about the 25th or 26th.
And he did not have access to the house after that?
Not necessarily. I offered him at any given time to come get his stuff.
Your Honor, every time I went there to get my stuff, she made up some kind of excuse.
Just a minute. When did you move back to Michigan?
I didn't move back to Michigan. We were going to Michigan to pick up my daughter.
Why didn't you stay there?
Because I have no home now. I gave up my house.
Where is the father of your other 3 children?
Nowhere around.
Do they all have the same father?
No.
I mean, you just told me that you uprooted yourself and your other 3 children, and you took them away from their fathers.
Well, when I moved, then he decided to move with his other son farther away.
Well, that's just one father.
Right, and then my middle daughter, her father is a musician, so he just chose whether to pay child support than be a part of her life. And then my oldest father is incarcerated.
Ms. Keller, sounds to me like you made lots of mistakes. Who supports these children now?
They do. They pay child support, and I take care of them.
I do mostly, Your Honor.
No, my God, you don't.
You just told me that. Shh, listen to me. You just said a moment ago, Miss Keller. What do you think? I'm crazy? I mean, I'm getting older, but I at least have a span of attention that lasts more than 5 minutes. You just told me a moment ago that one of them chose not to pay child support, so he's gone. He doesn't see her.
Right.
So they don't pay child support.
My oldest daughter's father just started paying child support.
And one's in jail, so he's not paying child support.
One just recently started up again. My son's father just started up again, and my middle daughter's father pays.
You have a lot of answers. What do you do for a living?
I was doing cell phone sales.
What are you doing now?
Nothing.
So you get welfare?
No, I don't get welfare.
You get some kind of aid because you don't support yourself
no, I don't.
and 4
I
children?
get no public assistance. I get $320 he gives me, and I get unemployment from the state of Michigan, and I also get my child support.
How much do you get in unemployment?
$1,400 a month.
And how much do you get in child support?
Between the two of them, $600 a month, and not including what Mr. Foster gives me.
You're doing pretty well for not working. Now, what happened, Mr. Foster? You said there's a lot more going down than she told me.
Yes.
So I'm ready to hear you.
About a week or two before I moved out, it was constant nagging and fighting. I mean, it turned to the point where it got violent, where, you know, it was unsafe for me to be there because of my job. I mean, she's went after my job on more than one occasion when I was up in Michigan.
What kind of a job do you have?
I'm in the military.
Go ahead.
And up there, she was calling my command, making accusations. And when I got down here, I didn't want that to happen because, I mean, she was telling me, well, I'm going to call the cops and have you arrested. When I was up in Michigan, she had me arrested in Michigan for hitting her. I was to have no contact with her or anything, and I went out of town with her. As soon as I got back, she called my probation officer and let them know that I went out of town with her. So I got arrested again.
Smart.
No, that's not how that happened. He showed up at the daycare one morning, just showed up at my daycare and said, can I talk to you?
That's not true.
And he showed up at my daycare. I went into the daycare, got a statement from them showing that he showed up without my consent, took it to his probation officer.
Only after she told me that I could see the kids.
Just a second. After that, did you move to Florida with him?
That was over a year ago, correct, yes.
Right. See what I mean about judgment?
Granted, I made a lot of bad judgments.
Just a
that doesn't
second.
justify his behavior.
Listen to me. You have 3 children. If I believe that you placed your 3 children, now 4, at risk because you were cohabiting with somebody who was violent, then they ought to take your children away. You live in this house with 4 children. You have to live somewhere. He pays child support for his 1 child.
When he left me with all the bills. When he left that day, he knew on his way to work and drained our entire account of all the money and left me with nothing.
I gave her half that money. She came to the base. I gave her half of the money that was in the bank.
How much was half the money?
$250.
Now tell me what property she has.
My furniture. I have a couch, love seat. She has my TV, DVD players, all my clothes. When I left there, she only sent me with maybe 2 pairs of clothes and all my uniforms. She has all my awards. She has all my ribbons and all that stuff.
I don't want you to think about clothes. Clothes you're going to get. What I want you to do is concentrate on what furniture you think that I should give you that she's not going to miss.
I'll give him everything.
Well,
the only reason I was holding the furniture is because he wasn't paying the rent, and the landlord said, we're going to evict you.
Why don't you pay the rent?
Because I can't. He signed the lease. I can't afford to. My unemployment's going to stop. He signed the lease. He's legally obligated for the lease.
No, not if you lock him out.
I didn't lock him out.
Yes,
I told him he had a house key.
You locked him out in July. Don't tell me you didn't lock him out.
Then I'll give him a house key. He can have a house key.
You told me you locked him out in July.
He was still staying there. Even after the locks changed, he was still staying at the house. He's been staying on and off.
Really, Miss Keller? So what are you doing here?
It's not like
What are you doing here?
It's not like that.
You're not going to hustle me, madam.
It's not like that.
Listen to me. You are not going to hustle me. All right. Within 5 days, you are to return to him all of his personal effects. All of the furniture that's in there, sir, is staying.
Well,
No, I have other furniture. He can have the furniture. I have my own furniture. He can have his furniture.
Oh, just a second. She wants you to have the furniture.
I said he can have everything.
Shh. I am making an order that you can have all of your furniture. Your clothes, your medals, your personal effects, and your ribbons. That is to be boxed up and placed outside the house. 5 days from today, I will prepare that order. As far as the rent is concerned, you are not entitled to the rent. You locked him out. So
I know, but what about the other?
That's all.
What about the other things that I have?
Now, this is case number 127 on the calendar in the matter of Huffine versus Donovan. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Mr. Huffine, was the defendant, what I gather is you had 1 son.
Yes.
Her daughter was in a relationship with your son,
Yes.
and he was tragically killed.
Right.
At that time, you decided to buy some burial plots
5 of them.
so that when your son was buried, you would know that you would be buried next to him and where the family would be. She bought plots above you.
Her daughter did.
In any event, this is your complaint. You found out that a stranger had been buried in one of your plots.
Yes.
And it is your claim that Ms. Donovan caused that to happen.
Yes.
And that she forged your signature for the authorization with the cemetery
Yes.
in order to move around the spots. You
Right.
say you never gave you permission for that.
That's correct.
And you want to be compensated.
Yes.
Ms. Donovan says that you did, in fact, give your permission, and she says that she can prove that you gave your permission. And she is counterclaiming because she said she's had to go through all kinds of legal gymnastics to clear herself of these allegations. So first tell me, when did your son pass away?
In 1997, December 24th.
And how did he die?
The doctor made a mistake, drilled into his brain.
So it was a surgical error?
Yes.
How long had you been living with Ms. Donovan at the time?
Less than 2 years.
And how long had your son been involved in a relationship with her daughter?
Probably since, 13 years old.
How old was he when he died?
18.
Now, can you show me, please, the burial plot locations? I would like to be able to see that so I could put it in context.
I have the video right here if you'd like it.
I would. Can you hold that a second, please? Mr. Huffine, can you walk up to the monitor, please?
Yes.
And I'd like you to sort of point out with me to your finger as it's being explained to me.
Alrighty.
Okay.
This one here is my parents. They're located in the upper cemetery. This right here is my son. When he passed away, I bought these 5 lots right here. This one included. I bought these 2 for me and whoever I was married to, and my ex-wife and whoever she was married to at the time. And the son was in the middle.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So you bought your sons, one for you, one for your wife, if should you remarry, one for your former wife, and her mate.
Yes, I did.
So that you would all be together. Now, where did the defendant's daughter buy their plot?
She bought the one in front of my son.
Excuse me? One. Just a second. One plot or 2?
Just one.
In front of his?
Right.
Okay. Go ahead.
And on May 3rd, I got a call from my ex-wife, and she said, I'm at the cemetery. And she said, it scared me to death. Someone was in your plot, my plot that I bought. And I said, no, I think you're mistaking. And she says, no, I'm not. So I called Jerry, and I said, you didn't do anything with these plots, did you? And she goes, no, I didn't. So I went down the cemetery, and I seen that Anthony David was buried in one of my plots. So I went up to the...
Was it the one right next to your son or
No,
one over?
it was the end. So I went up to the main office there at the cemetery, and they gave me a letter that Jerry had wrote and forged and switched plots on me.
Can I see a copy of that
Yes.
letter, please?
And here's one from the notary if you'd like to look at that too, saying that he did not do that.
I'd like to see both. Continue.
And at this point, I went through different attorneys. They explained to me what she had did, and they gave me a copy of that.
And you said I never signed it.
No, I never signed that. She also called the cemetery and told them she did not remember doing this.
That's hearsay. Yes, I'll hear you.
I thought it would make it easier. I do have copies from the cemetery of the plots. That would make it easier for you.
I'd like to see them, please. Okay. Tell me the circumstances surrounding the plaintiff agreeing to switch cemetery plots so that you and your daughter would be together.
Side by side. I'd be head-to-head with Larry. She would be head-to-head with Michael. Michael's mother and her boyfriend would be on one side of Michael.
And Anthony Davis is a stranger to everybody.
Right.
So I want you to tell me the circumstances surrounding Mr. Huffine agreeing to make that change, which in effect would say to him, if you marry either your wife or your ex-wife's mate could not be buried in the same line. Explain that to me.
When we bought the plots, and we did...
By the way, who bought them?
I did.
Larry did. They were under his name.
He paid for them.
Yes, but...
So he paid for them, so they were his plots.
Right, but all my monies went into Larry's checking account, and I do have proof of that.
I don't care about that.
Okay.
He bought the plots?
He bought the plots. They were in his name. At some point, I don't have a date, but I believe it was in early 1999, my daughter had said she wished that I would have bought my plot next to her. And she said, well, I wonder if you can switch it. I said, I don't know. So I called the cemetery. I asked the cemetery, can you exchange your plot if you want to? They said you can, as long as you do it before the last payment is made, and it has to be a letter
from the owner,
a request
from the
in
owner.
writing, notarized. So I didn't do it immediately. I thought about it for a little bit of time, and to be honest, I don't remember any specific hard, long talks between Larry and myself. I just remember that he did agree to it. I did write the letter out myself.
You wrote the letter out yourself, and that was in 1999.
Correct.
Were you still together as a couple then?
Yes, we were.
When did you separate from Mr. Huffine?
The end of August 1999.
So, not far after this.
Not
so I
far.
assume things had not been going well for a while.
Larry had suffered a lot of personality changes due, I guess, to Michael's death.
So things had not been going well for a while.
Right.
If you separated in August, and this was done in May, it was a brief few months. So I assume that in May, things were not going well between the two of you.
Everything seemed to be going fine, except for that Larry was very depressed a lot.
So things were not going fine.
Well, I don't know
I'm not
exactly what you
interested in what
mean.
you have
I
to
mean, we
say
weren't
now.
screaming, fighting, tearing each other's hair out.
Well, then how come you separated a couple of months later?
Because the end of June or July, he went to work in Utah, and he had an affair.
Yes?
And when I found out, I moved out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
That's his handwriting.
That is inconsistent with the notary's logbook.
Well, his log states that just one individual came.
Correct, and that's Miss Donovan, and she signed the cemetery affidavit.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Larry Huffine claims ex-girlfriend Sheindlin Donovan forged documents so she could switch around his prepaid grave plots.
So things were going absolutely fine until that time.
To me, they were.
And to you?
No, before I told her in the beginning of '99 she would be moving to start saving her money up and get her a place.
When did you tell her that?
Probably February.
Tell me about the conversation that you had with her.
It took place. She told me she was going to move her daughter back in. I said, no, she's not. And she says, well, if she's not moving back in, I'm moving out. And I said, well, I have to go to Utah till the end of August. When I come back, have your own place.
Why did you not want her to move her daughter back in?
Many different reasons. Her daughter was very disrespectful. She was 19 years of age. She was experienced an ecstasy drug, and I didn't want to be around it. And I told her no, and she could not accept that answer.
And that was in February?
That was in February, she knew.
After February, did you continue to live as a family with the defendant?
Yes.
Well, then how did she know you were serious?
Because when I told her she was moving out, I was very serious. She knew that.
Okay. Was your daughter living with you in January of 1999?
I don't believe so.
Was there a time when she was planning on moving back in 1999?
I don't remember.
Okay. It is your claim, Ms. Donovan, that the plaintiff agreed to switching of these plots. And according to your answer, you have an expert witness who is prepared to testify with regard to that. I'd like to hear the witness. Is that you?
Yes.
Step up, please. Witness been sworn, Berg?
Witness has been sworn, Your Honor.
Tell me your name.
Andrea McNichol.
Ms. McNichol, when did you become familiar with the defendant?
Well, I actually just by telephone on May 8th, 2003.
And what did she tell you?
She asked me to examine a document, I guess you're calling that the cemetery plot document that
Yes.
was notarized.
Mhm.
I asked her for the original. It's always best to examine the original. She called back later and said she made an attempt to get the original, that they would not make it available. I told her that anything that I could find would have to be contingent on that the copies that I looked at were true representations of the original. In other words, sometimes you get the original and you see that someone had cut and pasted something on there, or there are things on that that you cannot see when you see the copies. After that, she provided a large sampling of signatures. I told her to get the signatures of Larry Huffine and the notary.
Okay, this letter from the notary. Did you, in fact, examine the signature on the notary?
Yes.
And you concluded that the signature on the notary was the same?
Yes.
To my naked eye, the J's are totally different.
Well, if you'll notice on the letter, he writes his J's 4 times.
Well, he wrote it because he evidently looked at this. You've seen this logbook?
Yes.
It is clear that according to the notary's logbook, he did, in fact, notarize something for Miss Donovan.
Correct. But I would like to call your attention to the fact that I was also provided a large sampling of his signatures, not just the one.
May I see them, please?
Yes. Actually, I prepared this whole report. This is the copy they made for you.
Now, that's what I'm looking at. Well, clearly, his signature on this document, which has nothing to do with this case, but I'm just looking at the signature, the J is different from the J on this document. Let's take a look.
I don't find it different.
Let's take a look.
You never sign your name the same way twice.
Let's take a look. No, but this J is totally backwards.
It's
and
my
that's
opinion
totally
that
different.
That's his handwriting.
I'm just asking you about the J.
Okay,
that's
well,
totally different.
This other document he signs, in my opinion, with several shapes to the letter J.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
This doesn't strike you as being strange?
Yes, it does.
Somebody sends an I love you greeting card and signs it, Love, Larry Huffine?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Larry Huffine says ex-girlfriend Sheindlin Donovan switched around his prepaid grave plots without his permission.
What do you say is his handwriting in this?
Just the notary box.
In this?
Just in the notary box. Now, unless the whole notary area was cut and pasted on here, this is his handwriting in this lower
Which is
right
a
corner.
possibility.
Yes, without seeing the original, it is a possibility.
That is inconsistent, however, with his log.
Right, but his contention...
No, not his contention, but it's inconsistent with his log.
Well, his log states that just one individual came
Correct. Just one individual, and that's Miss Donovan, and she signed the cemetery affidavit. Okay. And it is your opinion that the signature on this cemetery document is his signature?
Yes.
Would you go over there and bring that board up closer to me so that I can see it?
I do have original documents, if you'd like to see them.
Okay, so the question signature from this cemetery document is at the top.
Okay.
Okay, now I have not had the opportunity to examine the original, but if the copy shows that there was not a cut and paste and that this ink was placed upon the paper, then these signatures match exactly to these other signatures.
Some of these are from checks and some of these are from other things.
Correct.
Cards, greeting cards, etc.
Yes.
Okay, put that back, please, Ms. McNichol. I'd like you up here, please. Are you telling me that you made your decision based on the documents that the defendant gave you?
Yes.
And one of the documents that she gave you was a greeting card. I have it here, Hallmark greeting card. I'd like to see the original. Bird, would you hand me the original, please?
I think that's all of them. There's several originals.
I just want to look at the greeting card.
A little strange with a love and a full name.
Isn't it?
This
is the one. Ms. McNichol, this doesn't strike you as being strange?
Yes, it does.
Somebody sends an I love you greeting card and signs it, Love, Larry Huffine?
And he signed every card he ever gave me.
Everything she gave me was like
Larry D. Huffine, Larry Huffine, always.
3700, Love, Larry Huffine.
I can only go on what's presented to me.
I understand. Thank you very much. Good. Now I will hear from your daughter. She's been dying to say something. I'm going to hear from you.
Your Honor, you have a letter right in front of you from the cemetery saying that the document is an original document.
No, it's not an original. I don't have an original.
It's a true
It is a true.
I do not have an original.
The city of Las Vegas will not release it.
I do not have an original,
No,
and neither, listen to me, and neither did your forensic expert have an original. Now, your forensic expert could have seen the original, but your forensic expert does not have the original.
No, that's not what I'm referring to, ma'am.
Fine.
I'm referring to you have a letter before you.
I understand what you told me, that some clerk said that this is a copy of the original. I understand what you're saying to me. You're not going to be able to change that your forensic expert did not have the original. I have to make a judgment, and my judgment is based on several things. I believe, Ms. McNichol, that you are a qualified expert in the field of forensics. I believe that you were quite honest with me when you said that you did not have the original, and that perhaps, had you had the original, your judgment would have been different. Without having the original, you believe the copy of the document that I have is Larry Hufffine's signature. I disagree with you. I have to ask myself why someone who had so carefully planned for the death of his entire family would have permitted a scenario where a stranger could be buried next to him. That's one thing. The timing of this letter is also very important. Ms. Donovan would have me believe that Mr. Huffine would, during a time of domestic strife, be so kind as to permit the defendant and her daughter to move into a situation where a stranger is occupying the cemetery plots that he has bought and paid for. That doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it's usually not true. So I do not believe that he ever agreed to this. Now, I also find most bizarre a love card that is signed Love Larry Huffine. But some people maybe that's strange, and it is possible that that's strange. I have to make a judgment based upon what has a ring of truth to it. What has a ring of truth to it is Miss Donovan's daughter wanted to be close to her mother and close to the teenage boyfriend. And she persuaded her mother, who knew she was on her way out of this relationship, to forge this signature. I believe that that's what happened. And since I'm the final arbiter, because that's where you've put this case, your counterclaim, Ms. Donovan, for damages due to defamation of character and slander are dismissed, and I am awarding Mr. Huffine the $5,000 that he has requested, which is the maximum possible allowance that this court can grant him, although I don't know how he can ever rectify the situation that has occurred with the cemetery plot. I doubt very much whether he can, and for that I am, sir, sincerely sorry. That's all. This case is over.
Your Honor, this is case number 236 on the calendar in the matter of Vile versus Zamet Smith.
Who's bothering you?
That lady over there.
Raise your hand if you're bothering Bird. Stop it.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have seats.
Stop it or step out.
There you go.
Who's Miss Zamet?
I am, Your Honor.
And you're Miss Smith?
Yes.
Which one is your son?
Tony's my son. This one right here.
Why don't you two lovely ladies sit down and let these two gentlemen come up here and see what I can do with, for, and to them. What is your first name?
Tony.
How old are you, Tony?
16. I'm 16 also.
You have a name?
Andy.
The reason I asked these two young men to come up here is because their parents don't really know what happened here because they weren't involved. They just relay what their children tell them. Isn't that right?
Correct.
Okay. You purchased an all-terrain vehicle.
Yes, Your Honor.
It was a used one.
Yes.
And you left it in your yard?
Yes.
You came back after being gone for a week or so and you found that it was gone.
Correct.
Somehow they came into possession of your ATV.
That's correct.
And according to you, they damaged it substantially so that it really can't be used, and you want them to pay a substantial amount of money. They're parents.
Yes.
The parents say that the boys really did some creative decorating of your ATV. That's their answer, that they painted it and made it nice. But then somebody stole it from you, and those people that took it from you must be responsible for the damage. Is that what I'm getting?
Yes, Your Honor.
So, here we go. When did you purchase this ATV?
On May 16th this year, because I got a job in Lake Arrowhead, and it calls for an all-terrain vehicle.
And from whom did you purchase it?
My father.
And how much did you pay him for it?
$12.50.
You don't have a bill of sale, do you?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it.
This is actually a paper trail from the original owner.
Okay, I'd like to see it. Good. I love when people come prepared. Okay, do you live in a house, sir?
Yes, I live with my mom.
Is that where you brought the ATV?
No, I bought it at my yard where I keep all my equipment.
What
at
yard?
this place right here. I am a groundskeeper at this Buddhist temple. In exchange, I keep my equipment there.
Let me see it.
And this is the front entry of where I drive in, and it's posted private property, no trespassing. These boys are trespassing.
Let me see. Okay, so you left this ATV on the grounds of a Buddhist temple.
Yes.
You work as a groundskeeper?
I keep the grounds up. In exchange, I get to keep my equipment there. I'm an arborist. I keep all my equipment there.
Okay, fine. Good. Now, you got it on the 16th.
Yes.
And you put it there.
Yes.
When did you go looking for it again?
Oh, that week I got a, I didn't get this newspaper article just till recently, but this is where I went. I talked to the U.S. Forestry Department in San Bernardino, California, and there's over 1 million dead trees, and I want to go down there and help them remove the trees.
This is not show and tell.
I'm not saying this is show and tell. This is why I bought the quad.
Put it down, please. I asked you a very simple question, Mr. Vile. Where did you go and when?
I went to San Bernardino, Lake Arrowhead.
And when did you go there?
The week after I purchased the quad. I parked it up there with all my other equipment. I left.
Okay. And when did you come back?
Another couple weeks later.
So about 3 weeks went by.
Not 3 weeks, no. I went for a week to see what's going on in Lake Arrowhead so I can assist them with my services. I came back, the quad was gone.
Let me tell you what you wrote, sir, in your complaint. You say you purchased this 1986 Yamaha quad on May 16th, and you parked it on private property on May 18th. Then I went to Big Bear to do some work on the 19th and returned home a few weeks later. That's what you wrote.
That's irrelevant. This is private property.
Don't tell me what's irrelevant. I'll tell you what's relevant. I want you to try to answer my questions as best as you can. The questions that I have, not the things that are on your agenda, which are not relevant as to why you went to work on trees. You purchased it on the 16th. I want to know when you left, and when you left it on the grounds of the temple, and when you returned.
I returned about a week and a half later. And that's why I didn't have enough time to register when I got back.
I know you have your own agenda as far as your testimony, because what you're telling me is not relevant. What's relevant is when you left it there and when you came back and saw it missing. That's what I wanted to know. Did you file a police report?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
Because it's a small community. I drove around, looked at garages, just waiting for someone to drive in front of me. And I have a lot of eyes around the neighborhood, a lot of kids in the neighborhood. They know I had the quad. They gave me a note on my truck that they seen these boys driving it. And that's when I responded.
What date did you get the note on your truck?
I don't have the date. Well, actually, I do. It's on the police report, because that same day.
Can I see the police report, please?
I don't have the police report.
We have
Can I see it, please?
Police report. You'll notice that it's found property, not stolen also.
Yes.
You stole the property. Let me explain something to you. Don't make any excuses to me. You stole the property.
It was a mistake.
When you take property that doesn't belong to you, that's stealing.
We didn't think it was, like there was no chain on it, there's no lock,
Listen,
there's
let
no
me
fence.
explain something to you. Let me explain something. I'm going to get to you in 1 second, but I want to tell you something. If you don't want to make this a very sad day in your life, you're not going to make excuses. You took property that didn't belong to you. When I grew up, that was called stealing. A car is not chained to its parking space, right? And if somebody leaves a car in a parking space and just happens to go into a store and leaves the keys in the car, that doesn't mean it's abandoned, that you can take it because it's not chained to the meter. We understand each other?
Yeah, we have.
Good.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Let us assume that instead of a quad, all of a sudden your boy shows up and in the driveway is an automobile.
We didn't bring it.
Just a minute. This is my scenario, not yours.
They did not bring it back and put it.
Pay attention.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Tom Biles says 16-year-olds Tony Zammit and Andrew Smith stole his quad runner. The teens say the vehicle was abandoned at a Buddhist temple.
Okay, so you told the police that you found it abandoned in a hill area behind the Buddhist church on approximately May 23rd. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you wrote it?
Yes. It had no battery, and the ignition was broken, and we had to bump start it, we had to roll it and then start it, and then we parked it about 100 yards away from where it was, and then we came back the next day because the seat was falling off and the wheel, so we tightened the bolts and then we painted the plastics because they were weathered, because it was originally red and it faded to pink and white, and we went back the next day and it was gone.
Yeah, we we're making it kind of like a little project, or like fixing it up. If anything, we made it better. We didn't break anything on it.
You want to say something?
The pictures that we have, Your Honor, show that what it looks like behind, because you could come down out of the hills where the kids ride their bikes, and you're right on to this dirt area, so it doesn't look like it's a contained area.
Doesn't have to be a contained area, madam. Let us assume that instead of a quad, this was a car. Okay?
Okay.
And all of a sudden, your boy shows up, and in the driveway is an automobile. And you say to him, where'd you get that from? He said, well, I was riding my bike up behind the Buddhist temple, and there was this car sitting there, and it wasn't attached to anything. And the starter wasn't working, and the color was faded. We looked around, nobody was there, so we jump-started it, and we brought it home because we want to make a project out of fixing it up.
We didn't bring it.
Just a minute. This is my scenario, not yours. You didn't bring it home, you hid it. You moved it from one location to another. You following my scenario? They brought it back and put it in your driveway, right?
Correct.
Okay. No, they did not bring it back and put it in the driveway.
Pay attention. I said I am making up a scenario for Miss Zammit.
Right.
That the boys found a car in the same area, right here. That the car was faded. Its seat was wiggly. You had to use a screwdriver to start it, but they brought it home because the boys wanted to make a project out of fixing up this car. Are you getting me, Miss Zammit?
Yes.
Would the first thing that you do call the police and say, I want to know if this car is registered to anybody?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
They didn't do that.
The boys actually have their own off-road vehicles.
I don't care what they have. They didn't do it. If they had called to find out if this car was titled, your sons would have found out that there was a name attached to this ATV. They chose not to do that. They chose to take the ATV and move it from one location to another. That's called larceny. The day you found this vehicle, was that the day you told your mother about it?
No, we told
No. The answer is no. When did you tell your mother about it?
after he came to our house.
Right. When did you tell your mother that you took it and moved it?
When he came to his house, we got a phone call.
Same time.
Right. Where is this ATV now?
It's in my neighbor's yard, just trashed.
It's in your neighbor's yard, just
Yeah.
trashed. Okay.
I got a
Yeah,
picture.
just a second. Just a second. Stop getting hysterical. It's an ATV. Don't get hysterical. It's not. You're well. You know. You don't have a life-threatening illness.
That's
Don't
why,
get-
not why I'm
just
here.
just a second. Put your hand down. You have to accept responsibility for what you do. Your sons just bought an ATV, and they bought it for what he paid for it, which was $1,250. Not for what he wants for it, which is $2,650.
That's the cost of the repairs, Your Honor.
Listen to me. Buy another one. They just bought this one for $1,250, and they can fix it up to their heart's content. Do you understand?
Yes.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,250. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I'm just aggravated that their parents didn't take responsibility to correct them.
I think it was an honest mistake. We didn't know that he owned it.
They're not remorseful. It's sickening.
I'll just leave other people's properties alone.
I don't think they got the message loud and clear.
The boys are very clear now that if something's in question, don't touch.
Don't touch.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of McLeish versus Kramer, step forward.
21-year-old department store manager Ashley McLeish is suing her former friend, retail salesperson Angela Kramer for her share of a trip to Las Vegas. Angela claims Ashley and her witness coerced her into going.
How old are you, Miss McLeish?
21.
Miss Kramer?
21.
You used to be really good friends, and you claim that Miss Kramer owes you for her share of a trip that the two of you took to Las Vegas.
Correct.
And Miss Kramer says she had a lousy time, right?
Yeah.
And in addition to having a lousy time, she never agreed to pay you back.
That is incorrect.
Miss Kramer, what do you do for a living?
I'm a student in a retail sales.
Where do you work?
I work at Mervin's.
You live by yourself?
No.
Who do you live with?
I live with my father.
In his house?
Yes.
Miss McLeish, what about you? You're a student?
Yeah, I go to Golden West College, and I'm a retail manager at Mervin's, and I live with my parents.
Okay, good. Now, you went on vacation?
Yes.
For how long?
3 days.
You were going there for what reason?
Because it was our 21st birthday, so me, her, and my witness wanted to have a good time, and on our 21st birthday, Vegas is like the place to be.
Good. So, you asked her to go with you?
Yes.
She said?
Yes.
And?
So I looked online for prices for hotel and airfare because we wanted to fly there. And after...
Did Miss Kramer say that you should put these charges on your credit card?
I agreed to put it on my credit card, and the agreement was that she would pay me back before we left on August 1st.
Your Honor, that's not...
Just a second. She didn't pay you back?
No, she hadn't paid me back.
What did she tell you about paying you back?
She said she'll get back to me. So I figured it would, like, she'd pay me back when we got back because we're having a great time. We both had fun. We went out to dinner, we went dancing, we went to clubs, we went got VIP everything. We didn't have to pay for anything. And all she did was...
Why not?
Why not? Because the month before we had made a connection. Our friend knows a lot of like security guards, and he knows a lot of bouncers, so we got to get in free. We didn't have to wait in like 2-hour lines to get in the best clubs.
Okay. According to you, you had a good time.
Right.
Came back, she didn't pay.
Right.
Go.
I never agreed to pay. When she said that the hotel, the price of it, I said that's way too high and I'd rather just stay at my family's house because I can stay there for free.
So why didn't you?
Because when I told them that, they said, just don't worry about it.
And somebody dragged you on the plane?
Well, you know, it's my 21st birthday. I was trying to distance myself anyways, and that's why...
I'm asking you, somebody dragged you on the plane?
No.
Well, if you didn't want to go, why did you go?
Because they said just don't worry about the costs.
Well, why would you think that they would take you away on vacation?
Because that's what they said.
I don't believe you.
Okay.
I don't believe you.
I actually have pictures, if I could show you, of her having a good time dancing.
I don't care whether she had a good time or whether she had a lousy time. It's irrelevant to me.
Your Honor, I was trying to get out of the vacation because I didn't want to go with them. And when they said, just come on, please go, I decided, fine, I'll go. Because they said, don't worry about any of the costs, don't worry about anything,
Your Honor,
just
may I
go.
say something, please?
Step up. Tell me your name.
My name is Lori Irigoyen. And we spoke to her the night before we left, and she said, yeah, she couldn't afford it. But then we said, okay, we've still put it on a credit card. You need to pay us back, or you need to pay Ashley back. She didn't want to do that. Well, you can't.
Well, what did she say?
She said, no, I don't have to pay you back. If I don't go, I shouldn't have to pay you back.
Exactly.
Why did you call the night before?
Because I had talked to them recently before that also, because what I was doing was I was talking to my backgrounds investigator, and when I was going through looking at the lie detector test and polygraph...
I have no idea what you're talking about now.
Well,
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
What it is I'm going for a future career in the criminal justice, and so I was talking to a backgrounds investigator, and she was showing me the polygraph test that you would have to be taking, and it had to ask questions about your friends and what you know about your friends, and that can make you fail and make it so you can't get into a premier area.
So
I
just
had
a minute, please.
I had decided that I didn't want to be around any negative influences where I know that things are going on.
So why did you go?
Because I made a mistake. I thought...
Good. Yeah, that's what you say. You say, I made a mistake. And when you make a mistake, what do? Pay! Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $296.45.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Now, this is case number 443 on the calendar in the matter of Aristizabal versus Morales. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat, ma'am, please.
Mr. Aristizabal, what kind of a business do you have, sir?
Do an auto repair business, ma'am?
According to your complaint, Mr. Morales came into your shop to have his car fixed. You did a diagnostic workup on his car, told him he needed transmission to be done.
Yes.
He decided at some point that he didn't want you to do the work on his car, and he went to leave. You told him he couldn't leave until he paid you for the diagnostic work, which was $85.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, at some point, and you're going to tell me how this happened, he tried to leave. You tried to stop him. Tried to stop him by having one of your employees close a gate. He plowed through, damaged your property and a sign. You want him to pay for all that damage. Mr. Morales says that you had no right to try to restrain him.
Correct.
That you did no work on the car, that when your gate closed on his car, you caused damage to his car, and he is counterclaiming.
Correct.
What day did Mr. Morales come into your shop?
On 11/16, Mr. Morales came. I do have an exhibit.
What time did he come, sir?
4 o'clock, 4:30.
And what time does your shop close, sir?
6 o'clock, Your Honor.
Did Mr. Morales have an appointment, or did he come in
No, he walked
without
in.
an appointment?
He walked into my shop by a friend. He was recommended by a friend of his.
Had he had work done by Mr. Aristobal himself?
No, Your Honor.
So why did he make this recommendation to you?
He said to me that this was his uncle's shop and that he'd give me a good price, an estimated price on rebuilding my transmission for that.
Is that what you needed, a rebuilt transmission?
Yes, Your Honor.
How did you know that you needed a rebuilt transmission, Mr. Morales?
I had went the day before to another mechanic shop, and I have the receipt here. It shows that I paid for diagnostics, and it states there that my transmission needed to be rebuilt.
Now, when you came into Mr. Aristobal's shop, sir, did you tell him you needed to rebuild the transmission?
Yes, I did, Your Honor. Well, actually, when I first got there, he wasn't there. He showed up about 45 minutes later.
So at that point, it was between 4:45 and 5:30.
About 5:30, when I finally got in contact with him around that time. He showed up. He asked me...
Who's Giovanni?
He was Giovanni at the time. He stated his name was Giovanni. He asked me what was the problem with the car. I stated my transmission needed to be rebuilt. He asked me, how do I know? I told him because I had another diagnostics done. So he then got in the car and test drove the vehicle.
How did he test drive the vehicle, sir?
He drove it up to the garage door, and then he also reversed it back. He opened the hood. He looked in it. The vehicle was on the whole time, and then that was basically all he did. He asked me, follow me into my office. He asked me for my information.
May I see the piece of paper that you have, sir? Is that the information that you filled out when you came in?
Yes, this is exactly information exactly as to what...
Mr. Morales was sitting in your office.
There is 4 copies, Your Honor, just to refresh you. There's 4 copies at the beginning of the estimate. That was the final estimate, what it says, everything that I found with the vehicle, everything that said. He also asked me...
You're not answering my question, sir.
That's the piece of paper that he filled up, yes, Your Honor. And he got an estimate of...
No. Mr. Morales did not sign this document that you have handed to me.
Yes, he did.
No. He did not sign this as it is written here. You filled this out after he left. So I want to see what he signed when he was there, not after you wrote everything that you wanted to write on this document about what happened later.
I gave him a copy where it says computer diagnosis, ABS not working, to check and advice. $85 on the top of it, as you can see. The final invoice,
This invoice is meaningless to me, sir. So then let's get over this, because we're not going to waste any more time. We're not going to waste any more time.
Fine, Your Honor.
Tell me what you did with the car, Mr. Aristobal.
When it came off of the car, I did the diagnosis. I put it what is called a Morris.
Tell me what you did.
I did the diagnostic.
Listen to me.
Would you please let me describe, Your Honor?
No, I want you to answer my question, Mr. Aristobal.
I final invoice did. I told him exactly what it was wrong at 5:30. He said he was going to take it somewhere else to have it repaired somewhere else. He wasn't going to do it. Then I asked him, he must repair. He must pay me for the diagnosis that I had done.
I didn't hear anybody doing a diagnostic, sir. Just because you wrote diagnosis doesn't mean you did anything. Now, you want to tell me exactly what you did or produce an employee who performed any work on the car.
It says right there on the invoice, Your Honor.
Mr. Aristobal, that's what the whole dispute is about. Mr. Morales says you didn't do any work on his car.
So he signed an invoice saying to have the car diagnosed.
This invoice, sir, is worthless. You wrote this invoice after the whole incident happened.
Did you see that I did it after, Your Honor?
Sir, you can't produce something.
I am producing. That's the honestly true, Your Honor.
Mr. Aristobal.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
We started arguing. He was, being loud. I got loud also.
He was a little bit high on drugs, I will imagine, because he was very,
This man was not high on drugs.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Mechanic Orlando Aristizabal says customer James Morales owes for skipping out on a bill. James says Orlando didn't perform any work on his car.
Who is this person?
That is a customer that happened to be there when he damaged his car, and he's here to testify. He damaged the car with the...
So this is a witness that you brought. Did you bring a witness who did any work on Mr. Morales' car?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, did anybody else take your car away from you and put it up on a lift or a machine?
No, Your Honor.
When you told him that you weren't going to do the job, what happened?
Well, what happened was, from after he drove the vehicle, we got off the car, we went into his office. He asked me for my information. I signed the form. He said that he was going to call me the next day to let me know exactly how much it was going to cost, that it was mandatory for his company to do a diagnostics. So after all, I agreed with it. I said, fine, fine. I agreed with it. I left the premises.
What made you change your mind, sir?
Overall, the car is in my name. It's my car, but that's my wife's vehicle. I have a 99 Tahoe, my truck, which I drive to work and back. She uses the Infiniti to go to work and do her errands. The car that was getting fixed was coming out of her money. She said no. She decided not to. She told me, well, we're wasting our money if we're throwing our money out the window to get another diagnostics done if we just got one done yesterday. So from there...
So you went back inside to get your car?
Right. When I went back to the premises, we pulled into the vehicle. She pulled in where the gate line is, right on the premises line, where the gate would close, and she stopped. I got off the vehicle. I walked up to the garage. I seen my vehicle still in the same place. The key still in the ignition. The hood was still open. The door was open. And I looked for Mr. Giovanni, which she told me his name was at the time. I went into the office. I did not see him. I came out of the office. He came out of the back. He appeared out of the back. I then told him, we're not going to leave the car with you. After all, I'm going to go ahead and take my car. He told me, well, you can go ahead and take the car, but you have to pay me my diagnostics, my $85 for the work that was done. I told him what work. I told him there was no wires connected to my car. I see no computer next to my car. I see no mechanic next to my car. I see no tools. The car was not on a hoist. It was not moved. So therefore, I felt that there was no work rendered to my vehicle, and I told him that I was not going to pay him.
Did you see his car on a lift, sir?
No.
Did you see any wires attached to his car being diagnosed?
Well, I was only there for like 5 minutes.
The answer is no.
No.
Go ahead.
So from that point, I told him I told him that I wasn't going to pay him. We started arguing. He was being loud. I got loud also, and from there I had my wife and my daughter in my truck waiting for me. I didn't want to argue with him, so I gave him the paper back. I shook his hand and I told him, look, Mr. Giovanni, if you feel I owe you, you have all my information.
Sue me.
You call me, you sue me, you do whatever you have to do. I'm taking my car.
Does that sound familiar, Mr. Aristobal?
I saw him after he came back. He wanted to leave. I told him he must pay for the diagnosis, which had been authorized.
And he said, I'm not paying for it.
He said he's not paying for it. I can call the police. He was a little bit high on drugs, I will imagine, because he was very,
This man was not high on drugs. This man was not high on drugs. Listen to me, sir. Mr. Aristobal, put the pictures down, sir. How did you stop him? Because according to your complaint, you said you tried to stop him. How did you try to stop him, sir?
I don't need to stop him. I did not. So help me God, Your Honor. I did not stop him. He left, taking my gate out of it and my dumpster, here in the dumpster, and here is the pictures of it.
Step up. You were a customer?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been a customer there?
For like 1 year.
You saw this incident happen?
Yeah, I only saw when he left.
Did one of Mr. Aristobal's employees close the gate?
No, ma'am.
Was it closed?
No, it was open. It was open like a car's distance.
And so describe to me what happened, sir.
Well, the young man got in his car and he just like bailed out fast, like he was stealing the car. He was like scared for some reason. He just left real fast and he hit the dumpster and the gate.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, from that time when I paid it, I told him I wasn't going to pay the $85, I gave him the receipt back because when I left, he gave me a receipt. And I told him, I'm not going to pay you. I was already backing up. He then asked me, look, at least pay me $45 for my labor fee. I then replied to him, I'm not going to pay you anything. I continued to back up. He started yelling at his, there was about maybe 10 employees there. And if I may say, Your Honor, he was also an employee here. The witness is also an employee. If you notice his hands, they are greasy.
Do you work for him? Did you part-time work for him?
I don't work for him. I paint cars. He's a mechanic shop.
What were you doing there that day, sir?
He was fixing one of my cars.
Fixing one of your personal cars or your business cars?
No, one of my cars.
Your
that I'm
Honor,
going to sell. Yeah, I try to get cars fixed so I can sell them.
Sit down. Go ahead.
From there, he yelled at his employees, don't let him leave, don't let him leave. I'm calling the police, don't let him leave. Well, my wife was still parked in the same place, if I can point out. She was parked here, right on the gate where the gate closes. And one of the employees started closing the gate on her vehicle. My daughter was in the car on the passenger side, behind the passenger back seat, and where the gate was closing onto. My wife then exits the vehicle and asks Giovanni, what's going on? What's going on? Giovanni replies, he's trying to steal my money. He needs to pay me. You guys need to pay me my money. She got in the vehicle. She backed up. She got onto the street. I then continued to back up. When they closed the gate on me, when it hit my vehicle, if you can see, if I can present some pictures to you. If you notice where the red arrow is, that's where I came to a complete stop at the dent that it made.
I want to see all the pictures, Bird. There's Mr. Aristobal's also, please.
This is the customer's car.
So what's this?
The car was scraped from the front all the way, from the back all the way to the front from the yellow fence. If you can notice the yellow paint on the fence.
If you look, Your Honor, on the tire on the driver's side, on the first tire, you would see that the trash can was actually pushed onto
the car.
On the driver's side.
You see the blue paint from the picture.
And both of the mirrors were knocked off.
Did you see who did that?
I couldn't really identify who did it. However, I know the male who was closing the gate was a white, tall, Caucasian male. And I told him, what's going on here? Because he's closing the gate on the side my 2-year-old is sitting on in her car seat. He says, I'm just doing my job, I'm just doing my job. Mr. Giovanni at the time, who had presented himself as Giovanni, was instructing his workers in Spanish that by no means let us out. Mr. Giovanni at that time said that he was going to call the cops. However, Cop Ernst did call the dispatching group to see if any call was dispatched from that location, and it was a negative.
Who's Giovanni?
This is, I named my shop after my son.
When somebody comes in and asks for Giovanni, your name is Orlando.
I am Giovanni's DBAS. Yes, Your Honor, that is true. I'm Orlando DBAS Giovanni's. That's how my fictitious name is.
You have estimates on your car?
Yes, we do, Your Honor. We have an estimate that was done a couple of days after the incident.
The next day.
The next day.
Which is the 17th. It's also dated.
Do either of you have a police report?
Yes, we do.
We have a copy of the preliminary police report that was filed that day.
If I may...
Do you have a copy of a police report that you filed, Mr. Aristobal?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'd like to see it, please.
If I may, Your Honor.
Shh.
Okay.
No. What year car is this?
It's a 1993 Infiniti G20.
Well, the cost of painting it is $3,000. It's
Right.
worth more than the car.
Exactly.
Right. You paint cars, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
How much do you charge for a really good paint job?
It varies from $2,500 to $500.
And what about to take out all the dents on a car?
Depends how many, what kind of dents.
Here you go. It's not often that I have an expert witness that I can question. You can stand up, sir.
It could be fixed without changing any parts.
Great. How much could you fix it for, sir?
I can fix this probably for $1,500.
You know what I find interesting, Mr. Aristobal? That Mr. and Mrs. Morales filed their police report the date of this incident, the 16th.
Right after.
You didn't bother to file yours until the next day.
When I went there, they told me I won't be able to file the same day because simply they have filled out one. And when I got there at the Foothill Police Division, they told me I must wait until next day so I can file a report. And I went back.
Are you telling me that a police officer said you couldn't give your version of the events on the same day?
Yes, because it was one taken already. Yes, Your Honor, that's
But the next day it was okay for them to take it.
Well, I went over it again.
So what you're telling me is the next day they said...
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Aristobal, you did the wrong thing, sir. There was a dispute. Whether you were right or wrong with regard to the dispute, you had an option. And your option was to let this gentleman and his wife leave.
I did.
And no, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't. To let this gentleman and his wife leave, causing no problem, deciding to sue him. You had his name and address. You felt as if he owed you $85. That's what you do. You said, no, I'm calling the police. The truth of the matter is, if you had called the police at that very moment, Mr. Aristobal, you would have been the first one filing the police report. You didn't call the police at all.
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Not that day you didn't, sir.
So help me God.
No, you didn't, sir. Because then you would have filed the police report before them. And if I listened to your logic, when they came out speaking, then when they came in, the police would have said to them, you can't file a report today. Mr. Aristobal already did. You have to come back tomorrow and file your report. I know exactly what happened. You don't have to be a genius to figure out what happened. There is no indication whatsoever by you or any witness that any work was done on Mr. and Mrs. Morales' car. You were annoyed that they weren't leaving the car. You told your employees to close the gate because you weren't going to let him take the car. You frightened his wife by your actions, and you're going to pay for his car.
And my daughter.
And he's not going to pay for any damage that he did to your gate or your dumpster because he had no right to try to keep him inside, which you did. You have recourse. This is not the Wild West. Judgment for the defendant in the amount of $1,700. You can have your car fixed for that amount. Otherwise, you'll have to total it.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. May step.
21-year-old student Lindsay Highland is suing her ex-boyfriend, 22-year-old Eddie Rubio, and his friend, 22-year-old Jason Johnson, for wrecking a car that was rented in her name.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 233 on the calendar in the matter of Highland versus Rubio Johnson.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Miss Highland, you did a very, very stupid thing that I'm sure you'll never do again, which is that you allowed both of these gentlemen to use your credit card for the purposes of renting a car. There was an accident. I understand the accident wasn't their fault, according to their answer, but you still got stuck with the bill.
Yes, ma'am.
And you want them to reimburse you for that bill.
Yes, ma'am.
They say you should have gotten insurance, right?
Yes. Yes.
Which one of these gentlemen do you know?
Eddie, the one in the blue.
How do you know Eddie?
Me and Eddie have been dating. We started dating in September.
Are you still dating?
No.
When did you stop dating?
We stopped dating about 3 weeks after the accident.
And tell me about the request to use your credit card and when that was.
Around the last week of February, Eddie approached me concerning their Mardi Gras trip. They said they had all their plans taken care of, but the matter of a rental car was the problem. They said that they couldn't rent a car because none of them had a credit card. So
how did they get a room for Mardi Gras? How did you get a room, Eddie?
We stayed with the sister.
And there were 3 of you going?
Yes, there was.
And none of you had a credit card?
None of us.
How old are you?
I'm 22.
Well, ma'am, I did have a credit card. It's just we went to the airport to rent one, and they said I had to be 23 years of age, so they wouldn't let me.
Oh.
But I had one.
How old are you?
I'm 22.
How old are you?
21.
How come it was okay for her to rent a car using her credit card?
They went to a different location than I went to.
Well, why didn't you go to the same location she went to?
I had no means of transportation.
Your Honor, I offered to take all of the guys to the rental place with me. Eddie was the only one who decided to go. Jason decided to stay in bed. He didn't want to go that
Were
day.
you living together?
No. We live close by each other. Those two were living together at the time.
Okay. So you went to a rental place, and which rental place did you go to?
Enterprise.
Who went? You?
Myself and Eddie.
Let me see the paperwork that you filled out. And who filled it out?
I did.
And when she filled out the paperwork, Eddie, where were you?
I was right beside her.
Did you put him down as a driver?
I put all of them down as a driver.
Authorized drivers over 21. No, it doesn't list anybody else's name.
She didn't ask me. She said, are all the guys going to be driving? I said, yes, ma'am.
You got to be more careful.
Yes, ma'am.
But he was there.
He was
right?
Yes, I was.
And you were watching her fill this out.
Yes, I was.
And you saw that she declined any insurance.
No, I didn't. I thought
Well,
she
then
had
you should have
insurance.
looked more carefully.
Ma'am, we discussed in my house that we were going to get the insurance. And we had already figured the price in for the insurance. So when they went, she had the money. So we knew that there was going to be insurance. So there was no need to ask after that.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, at the time when we went to rent the car, none of them had very much money. I lent Eddie $200 to make the trip.
Is that right, Eddie?
Yes, she did.
Go ahead. And when the lady asked me, she said, would you like insurance? And I looked at Eddie, I said, you'll be driving the car, it'll be in your possession. He said, we can't afford it, we don't need it.
Did you say that to her?
No, I didn't, ma'am.
Just say you weren't there, right?
No, ma'am.
Move over. And don't open your mouth again, and take your hands away from your pockets. Don't open your mouth again, because you weren't there, because you didn't get out of bed.
Yes, ma'am.
So don't open your mouth again until I ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. You were standing there and you saw her fill out this form where she declined insurance. There is no question in my mind that if you didn't watch her, you should have.
I thought she got the insurance.
I don't care what you thought. What'd you go there with her for?
Because we needed to get the car, and it just went. She wanted someone to go with her, and I did. I thought she had insurance. I thought she...
You're supposed to know. And I believe her when she says that she said to you, and you said, we don't have that much money. It'll be fine.
No, I didn't, ma'am.
Especially since you didn't even have enough money to go on the trip.
I loaned some money. I paid her back.
No, you didn't loan. You borrowed.
Borrowed some money.
How much money did they give you for the car?
Eddie and Jason gave me $90 a piece, and they said that they were going to pay the rest when they got back. We didn't have to pay for the car until we returned it.
What about the third person?
No.
So they didn't even have enough money to give you the entire amount of money before they went?
No.
You're really not smart. You'll never do it again.
No, ma'am.
And you will certainly tell all your friends, letting anybody else rent a car on their credit card is the dumbest thing that you can do.
Yes,
well,
Your Honor.
among the dumbest things that you can do.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Who was driving?
Ryan.
Where is he?
He's not here.
He was afraid to fly.
No, my dear, he was afraid of me.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Lindsay Highland says ex-boyfriend Eddie Rubio and his friend Jason Johnson owe for a wrecked car. Lindsay says the vehicle was rented with her credit card.
You took a chance. You lost. Why should she get stuck with your problem? What do you do for a living?
I'm a student
A student where?
at Upper Iowa University.
When are you graduating?
Next year.
Why is it taking you so long?
I just took a year off college.
Why did you take off a year?
I just wanted to take off a year. Didn't feel like going to school for the year, so I took it off.
Who's paying for your school now?
Financial aid and loans. But when we got the car, I told her to get the insurance because I've been through it in the past.
No.
And I had
No,
insurance.
sweetheart. You did not tell her to get the insurance because it was too much money. It would have practically doubled the cost of the car to get the insurance. You didn't even have enough money to give her for the rental car to begin with. And even if you said to her, get the insurance, you were standing right there. You have a mouth. You say to her, Lindsay, I told you we must have the insurance. I'm not taking the car out without the insurance. You could say that, can't you? And I want you to repeat after me. Lindsay,
Lindsay,
I'm not taking the car out without the insurance.
I'm not taking the car out without me.
See how easy that was?
I did do it.
No. So, I'm not taking the car out without insurance. Here this is the paperwork. even after you took a year off from college, you didn't lose the first 3 years, so I assume you can read English. Is that right, Eddie?
Yes, I can.
So that you have an opportunity to look at the paperwork before you put it in the car, right?
Correct.
The fact that you didn't, that's your problem.
We didn't find out until we got in the accident.
Listen to me, Eddie.
So.
You're not following what I'm saying to you. You were there with her. Lindsay, I'm not taking the car out without the insurance. You look at the paperwork, which you keep in the car, because you have to keep the paperwork in the car, right, Eddie?
Yes.
And you say, I can't take this car out, it doesn't have insurance. I'm not obligating myself. I'm leaving the car here. What do you want?
They told me that that I could just use my insurance. If anything happened, I could just put it on my insurance.
Who told you that?
The guys. They were all aware that there was no insurance.
I believe that they were. Now, Eddie, tell me about the accident.
We're coming back, and in Jackson, Mississippi, there was a semi that...
Give me whole sentences. There's a semi what?
Semi
means half. There's a half.
No,
What you talk to me is about a half. There was a half that what?
There was a semi truck that ran us off the road, and we hit the embankment, and they came back and hit it again. We had a flat tire, so we couldn't chase them. So he just left, and they...
Just a second. So a truck hit you. Let me get this. Truck hit you, and then after it hit you, it came back and it hit you again?
Well, we hit the side rail, and they came back, and we met again.
Oh, okay. It didn't come back to hit you purposely
Yeah.
for the second time. Is that right?
Correct.
Go ahead.
So it was considered a hit and run. So it wasn't our fault.
Mm-hmm.
So why should we pay if she should have got the insurance?
May I speak?
Who was driving?
Ryan.
Where is he?
He's not here. He didn't show up.
He was afraid to fly. And he told...
No, my dear. He was afraid of me.
Yes.
All right. Move over. What do you want?
Ma'am, I did have enough money for the insurance because I was going to use my credit card to rent the car. So when we went and found out the first time, I had enough on my card. I just was not of age.
Listen to me. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. I coulda rented the car on my credit card. I woulda if I got out of bed. And I coulda because I had enough money. But you didn't, right?
No, ma'am.
What should this cost you?
$7,800. And Your Honor, this has gone on my credit, and I am in
Just a second. So have you paid it?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So the money has to go to Enterprise.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And so you're suing for the maximum allowable in this court, which is $5,000, but whatever recovery that you make, the check will be made payable to Enterprise.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is now affecting my financial aid, and I may not be able to finish my senior year of college.
Well, next time you think twice about, being foolish. It's certainly not affecting his last year of college, and it looks to me as if you're going to get a lot more out of your last year of college than Eddie. You can move back now. The two of you were responsible because you had an agreement with her. Your agreement was that you were going to rent this car. She was merely providing the mechanism for you to do that. You had the opportunity to use his credit card, chose not to do that. You used hers. You had knowledge of the fact that insurance was declined. You chose to drive the car anyway. This is your problem, not hers. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I'm glad that she saw that I made a mistake, but that they were ultimately responsible.
I feel bad, but it's her fault. She should have got the insurance.
He refused to pay me back. He said that it was my problem, and he understands we're going out, but he can't afford it, and I signed the papers, so it was my problem.
That little bit of trip wasn't worth it, man. It really wasn't worth it.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Eden versus Neely. Step forward, please.
18-year-old student Desiree Eden is suing her father's girlfriend, EMT tech Susan Neely, for the return of payments on a Dodge Neon she repossessed. Susan is countersuing for the vehicle's unpaid balance and insurance payments.
Who are you?
I'm the dad.
Why don't you stand up, sir? Miss Eden, while this gentleman, who's your father, is not a defendant, I'm going to have him stand here because I think it's important. Miss Neely is your father's girlfriend. They live together, is that right?
Yes.
According to what I read, a couple of years ago, you needed a car. You were living with your father and his girlfriend. And Miss Neely agreed to buy a car. You were underage, so it was in her name. And tell me what the agreement was.
The agreement was that I paid the car payments on the car as it came. I paid the $1,000 down plus the car payments on it.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
From when to when?
From November 2003 to December or November 26th of 2004.
And you made the payments every month?
Yes.
Who paid the insurance?
I paid it when she asked for it.
The agreement was that you would make the monthly payments?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Neely, is it correct that Miss Eden made the monthly payments on the car from November of 2003 to November of 2004?
Her last payment was on November the 12th.
So the answer would...
The day after Thanksgiving, she decided that she was going to move out and move in with her boyfriend. And I told her she could not take the car because that car was in my name. It was titled in my name. And I would not let her have it because if something should happen and they go out and have a wreck and kill somebody, it comes back on me. So I told her she had to leave the car with me, and if she came with the balance owed against the car, then I would sign it over to her.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Just a second.
She did not come up with the $2,201.93 that was owed against the car, so I would not allow her to have it.
Well, wasn't your agreement. Miss Neely, that wasn't your agreement.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
It's really dumb to hitch your wagon to a star when you're 18 years old, especially when the star isn't such a star.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 18-year-old Desiree Eden says her father's girlfriend, Susan Neely, illegally repossessed her car. Susan says she took the car away when Desiree moved in with her boyfriend.
When did you turn 18?
May 23rd.
Of 2004?
Of 2004.
Once she turned 18 and continued to make the payments, and you continued to accept the payments, that contract that you had with her, that verbal contract, was ratified, which meant it became a contract. That contract's terms were very simple. You make the payments until the car is paid off, I'll sign the title over to you. That was your contract.
But she's no longer making payments.
She stopped making payments because you wouldn't let her take the car.
Correct.
What we're talking about is an anticipatory breach, which is you said to yourself, I'm not so sure whether she's going to continue to make the payments on the car if she's not here and living with the boyfriend, so I'm not going to let her have the car. That's what you really said.
Well, our insurance company told us that.
Hey, don't tell me what your insurance company told you. The insurance company cannot interpret a contract that you had with her.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Also, when it was told to her when we decided to get the car for her, it was also told that she would stay in school, and it depended on her grades. That way we could also use the car. If she started slipping a little bit, we could take the car away from her.
She hadn't slipped? Sir, she just decided to move out and move in with her boyfriend.
Exactly. But after that is when she lost her job. She quit school.
I did not.
But just a second. Just a second. Mr. Eden, at the time she left, she was making the payments.
Yes.
She was in school.
Yep.
And she had a job.
Yes.
You can't anticipate what's going to happen afterwards. Where's the car now?
It is at my house.
They have it for sale for $2,500.
Car is hers.
Okay, who pays the rest of the...
She does.
Okay. Does she pay that to us or to the car dealership or...
Are you working?
No, ma'am.
Well, how are you going to make the payments on the car?
Well, I just moved back into my mom's here recently. I have to get another job.
Where's the boyfriend?
Right here.
How come you moved out of his house?
We both moved into my mom's house. We were having too much problems in Monette where we were living with him. He had assaulted me shortly after I moved out.
Who did?
My father. I had to get a restraining order against him on December 8th. He assaulted me on December 7th.
About what?
About he was mad that I moved out and I was living with him.
Does he work?
Yes, he does.
What does he do?
He is
Don't
in
look down.
factory.
What?
Factory.
And what about you?
I'm in school, high school.
How do you do in high school?
I do really good. I have good grades.
You do really well.
I do really well. I try.
I have a report card from when she left.
We don't need you to do any negatives.
Okay, that's sort of.
Listen to me. Is he in school?
No, he's not.
How old is he?
22.
Do you have the ability to do better in school?
Yes, ma'am.
It's really dumb to hitch your wagon to a star when you're 18 years old, especially when the star isn't such a star. Unless you get an education, it's going to be a struggle your whole life. You want to struggle your whole life?
No, Your Honor.
You know what I'm saying to you?
Yes, ma'am.
You look like you have the potential to do okay. Unless you recognize your potential, you're going to be clawing at life your whole life. I think that taking back this car is probably going to be a terrible burden for you, financially, because you don't have the money for it now, right?
Right.
So you put in $4,000 into the car in the year that you had it, in payments that you made.
Correct.
Let's say you had to rent a car, a basic car, for the year. That would have cost you about $2,000 or $166 a month, basic. So you have the following choice. Either you assume full financial responsibility for this car, or I'm prepared to award you half of what you're requesting, which is $2,000, which might give you an opportunity of going and finding a good second-hand car that wouldn't give you any further payments. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
And then Ms. Neely and your father can go and sell this car. If they make a profit, fine. If they don't, fine. You think that's a smarter idea for you?
Yes, I do, because I don't know what they've done. I'm not sure what they've done to the car since I haven't had it.
Well, I don't think they've purposely done anything. They're trying to sell it. All right. You can't anticipate a breach of a contract. You had an agreement with this young lady, and she fulfilled her end of the agreement. She used the car for a year, over a year. She understands that that's wear and tear on the car. I'm awarding her $2,000. Be smart. Buy wheels so that you can get yourself to and from school and to and from a part-time job. Do well in school. Think a little higher than what you know. You know, think a little higher. Think, can I reach my potential, and what is that?
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
You don't have any children, do you?
Oh, no.
Right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And you don't plan on any for a while, right?
No, ma'am.
Very smart. Make sure. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $2,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She bailed her ex out of jail.
She was pretty much the only person I knew that would help me.
Gave him a place to live.
Yeah, I wanted to be with her and wanted to, be a family again.
And how did he repay her?
He was arrested for domestic assault the very next day.
Against her?
Correct.
You were foolish?
I was just in love.
What happens when you fall in love with a bum?
Judge Judy.
I was just giving her my paycheck.
No complaint. Subsequent to your divorce, you made 2 loans to him.
Yes, ma'am.
Both were for court fines or tickets or whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
And neither of those loans have been repaid.
No, ma'am.
The defendant says that you did, in fact, advance him the money in form of a loan, and he paid you back. And he says that the second chunk of money that you gave him to pay tickets or something so that he could get his license back was just a gift, and he is also prepared to establish that. So, when were you married and when were you divorced, Ms. Kranz?
We were married on October the 10th of 2003.
And when were you divorced?
The divorce papers are stated April the 27th of 2004.
And when was the first loan?
June the 21st of 2004. And I do have where he signed a note that he would pay me back the money.
Okay, I'd like to see it.
Okay. Also attached with that is the way that I proceeded to get the money. He was in jail at the time for not paying fines and restitutions.
Just a second.
One
second.
stolen.
Shh. Okay, were you in jail in June of 2004?
Most definitely.
When did you get out of jail?
Like the beginning of July. She came and posted a bond for me. It was a $2,200 cash bond.
And you signed this that you owe her $2,300 $133.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
With regard to that, you say you paid her back.
Yes, ma'am.
How come you called your former wife for the money? You were divorced?
We were planning on trying to work things out. We've been talking on the phone while I was in jail. I would have been there probably 4 years if I had not made that bond. She was pretty much the only person I knew that would help me.
Okay. So you were pretty desperate.
It was probably more than desperate. I mean, I wanted to be with her and wanted to, be a family again. But I mean, yeah, she was the only place.
What were you in jail for, sir?
I had stolen some things, and I had violated my probation for that by not paying my fines and court costs and all that.
Now, show me, Mr. Lubersbeck, that you paid her back.
What I have is my check stubs that my bosses wrote me for that period of time, and I have my supervisor at the job that was there on 2 occasions. She came and personally got my check. I signed it and she got it. And then when I went back to jail, she picked up my last paycheck, and he can testify that he was there and saw that.
Your Honor, I will state that when we were together, he would contribute to bills, but certainly never repaying any of the money that I had loaned him.
Did you ever go and get money from his supervisor?
There was one occasion where I picked up a paycheck. After he had went to jail in August, I picked up an $84 paycheck from his job.
Only one paycheck?
Yes, ma'am.
It's the only time you went?
Yes, ma'am.
Step up. Tell me your name.
Nebo Shakovacevic.
What kind of work do you do?
Construction.
Were you his supervisor?
Yes, at that time.
Tell me what you know about these paychecks.
I know at 2 occasions that she came on Fridays and he signed the checks, the paychecks, and gave it to her. And the last, when he went to jail, the last paycheck, my brother gave it out to her because he called from jail and told me to give her the last check.
Now, what about the 2 other times that you say you saw him?
Yes, I saw him sign the paycheck and hand it to her.
Where were you living at the time, sir?
When I got the loan, I got out of jail, moved directly in with Ms. Krantz.
How long did you live with her?
It was not very long.
Tell me how long. When did you get out of jail? You got out of jail
it was
in
a month at the longest.
July?
Yes, ma'am, and in August I was back in jail, so it was about 3 weeks.
I made the loan for him on June the 21st. I paid his fines and restitutions to get him out of jail. He could not get out of jail until they were paid.
He was
the very
not,
next
just
day,
a second, he was not living with you at the time?
No, ma'am, he was in jail.
Okay, so then he got out of jail.
And he was arrested for domestic assault the very next day.
On who?
On me.
How long did he live with you after that?
From the time that I made the loan to him to the time that he moved out of my home completely was, I say, about a month, maybe.
And how much money do you claim you gave her, sir, in your paychecks?
Ma'am, since I've known her...
No, I don't care since you know her. I'm talking about for that 1 month.
Every dime it says I made. Since I've known her, I've signed every paycheck I've ever made, and she has deposited in her account.
Listen to me. You're not following what I'm saying to you.
$2,308. And after I was arrested for domestic assault, my boss came and bonded me out, and I went and stayed with him.
Did he sign his checks over to you, and did they go into a joint account?
No, ma'am. I had my own personal private account. Thomas never was on my account. He was not able to be on my account.
No, that's not what I asked.
Okay. No, ma'am, he did not. No.
What kind of work do you do?
I am a stay-at-home mother. I have a special education child, and I stay at home.
Well, who supports your family?
I get a Social Security check for my son's disability, and I also get alimony from my first 13-year marriage.
Okay. Let me hear about the next loan that you allegedly made to him.
Mr. Lubersbeck got out of jail December the 13th of 2004.
Was that for domestic violence?
It was for a probation violation because of the domestic violence.
Against her?
Correct.
Go ahead.
Mr. Lubersbeck got out of jail on December the 13th, in which he called me, stated that he had nowhere to stay, nowhere to go. He wanted to come back home. I allowed that to happen. I know that he owed me money from before. I figured if I didn't let him come back home and help him...
Don't even say that. You said that in your complaint.
Well, it was...
I don't believe it. When he came back home, did he sleep with you in your bed?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, it was...
Shut! That's not to give him a place to stay. Giving him a place to stay, said here's a pillow and you go sleep on the couch. Letting him come home and share your bed is a totally different thing, Miss Krantz. You know it and I know it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I was just in love, and I was
Well, then you have to
foolish.
say that, you know. I mean, that's clear. You were in love with him?
And I was foolish.
Well, then why are you bothering me?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
My daughter was not with me. She had chose to live with her father.
Is she back now?
No, we are just now establishing our relationship together.
That's what happens when you fall in love with a bum.
And later today,
I was trying to get out of the vacation because I didn't want to be around any negative influences where I know that things are going on.
So why did you go?
Speck owes for 2 loans to pay court fines and restitution. Shelley also says Thomas is an abuser.
Okay, you were foolish, you were in love, you gave him money.
I did.
Then you had a fight, and he probably knocked you around, and you had him incarcerated, and then he was violated again, and then as soon as he got out of jail, you let him come back again in December to your home where you have children, where children are supposed to be peaceful and live in a peaceful, quiet environment.
At that time, my daughter was not with me. She had chose to live with her father because of the things that had happened between Mr. Lubersbeck and I.
Is she back now?
No, we are just now establishing our relationship together.
Well, that's what happens. It's what happens when you fall in love with a bum. Fall in love with a bum, you can lose your whole family.
I realize that.
That would be you.
No, it wouldn't.
You may have a seat, sir. Yeah, that would be you.
Ma'am, I've worked every day since I've met this lady, and I was sleeping in my car before we were married and giving her my paycheck. I don't consider that being a bum so that her and her family can eat.
Just a second, sir. How did she get involved with the arrest that brought you 2 probation violations? Who'd you steal from her?
No, sir, ma'am. It was an employer that was refusing to pay me.
You mean an employer that was refusing to pay you? A judge wouldn't listen to you when you were trying to get your money from that employer? Look at you, Mr. Lubitschek. You can't even keep a straight face.
I didn't even try to go through a court. I just took what I felt he owed me.
Did that ever happen before, Mr. Lubitschek?
No, ma'am.
Never were arrested before?
Yes, ma'am.
She didn't have anything to do with that, did she?
Not that I know of.
Okay. So how many times in total, I want you to think. How old are you?
26.
26. So you haven't had that long a life. How many times have you been arrested? Let's say more than 5?
15.
15. So you've been arrested 15 times. And how many times was she involved?
Twice.
Twice out of 50. So 13 times she was not. That makes you a bum.
Sure.
Just because you try to pay your own way and pay a little rent money doesn't make you not a bum. Somebody who's 26 years old has been arrested 15 times is a bum. That's what my grandmother would say.
She's entitled to her opinion.
It's my opinion's the only one who counts here.
Your Honor,
Listen to me, Ms. Krantz. Give me the second loan. He came out of jail in December of 2004. You took him back home. I assume it was at that point your daughter went to your ex-husband or before?
No, ma'am, that was in June.
In June of 2004?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so she had enough of him 6 months before.
Yes, ma'am.
So now let's fast forward to December 2004. Go ahead.
He came home. He was placed on intensive state probation. Part of his probation was that he was to get his license back and retain a job. So he asked if I would help him get his license reinstated. He promised me several times that if I paid this for him, that he would pay me back. He informed me that there were 2 tickets that he had to get paid.
All right, so you gave him how much, $800?
It was over $800.
All right, and then what happened after the 15?
Shortly thereafter, we began to argue. Thomas still had a problem finding a job.
And?
We began to argue because he wouldn't get a job and he wouldn't pay me back the money that he owed me.
Is that what you were arguing about?
We were arguing because that's what we do. I guess that was one of the topics of conversation, sure.
Your Honor.
And what did you say to her?
I went and sat in the living room on the chair, and when the argument continued, I left.
What was she saying to you?
After about the first 10 minutes, I don't even know. I wasn't listening.
Is it possible she was saying to you, you have to get a job because you have to pay me back the money you owe me?
She did say that, and that's something that we already knew, but it was wintertime. I frame houses for a living, and framing jobs aren't so easy to find in the wintertime.
Well, this makes my life much easier because you see what you just said, Mr. Lubersbeck? You said that's what we were arguing about, about the money that I owed her. But, it's not so easy in the wintertime to get a job framing, and that's what I do for a living. So you know what that is, Mr. Lupespec?
What is it?
That is an acknowledgement that you owe her money.
Your Honor.
Shut up! Sorry. That's what it is. You must have been before a lot of dumb judges in your time, sir.
Not that I know of.
Somebody who's been arrested and probably convicted more than half a dozen times, as far as I'm concerned, should probably be in jail forever. Listen to me carefully, sir. Did you give him a W-2 for his taxes?
Your Honor, it's a different form.
It's a different form.
1099.
Okay, so you gave him a 1099.
Yes, he's got that.
You have a short time to fill out your taxes, sir.
Correct, ma'am. April 15th.
Right. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $3,195, which is the amount requested. I don't believe, Mr. Lupespec, that you paid back this loan. Your final statement to me indicates that the last argument that you had with the plaintiff was over this loan. You decided to tune her out on the 15th of December. I tune you out now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
We can't communicate because both of us are hard-headed and didn't want to listen to the other one.
I'm just very hurt that I gave the defendant so many chances and tried to help him so much, and he still denied the fact that he owed me the money.
I love her very much.
I care about him, but I think I'm going to make smarter decisions from now on.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Robinson versus Hill. Step forward, please.
Legal Secretary Carol Robinson is suing her son, Auto Shop District Manager Joseph Hill, for a series of unpaid loans. Joseph says the money was a gift.
Miss Robinson, Mr. Hill is your son.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that while separated from his wife, he accrued a series of loans from you to pay his bills, other expenses, including child support. Your son says that there was never an agreement that the money that you did, in fact, advance him to pay his bills was a loan, that you agreed to help him out, and that you're only angry because he went back to his wife. Is that what you're saying, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How old are you?
28.
How many years have you been married?
A little over 3 years.
You have children?
Yes, ma'am, one son.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a district manager for an auto mechanic shop.
And how long have you been doing that?
For about 3 years.
Now, I want you to tell me about what happened after you and your wife separated.
Well, when we separated, we were both working. We were both working, so there were a little more bills than my income could pay for. My mother was there to help me out.
Just a second. Specifically, I want you to tell me what you did. You separated from your wife. Where did you go?
I stayed in the family home. My wife left.
And when did she leave? What month, what year?
May of this year.
Where did she go?
She went to her grandparents' house.
With your child?
Yes, ma'am.
Leaving you in the house. Now, is this a rental house or is this something?
It's a rental house, yes, ma'am.
And what's the rent?
$850 a month.
And how much were you earning at the time, sir?
I earn about $1,440 every 2 weeks is my gross income.
Now, tell me about this conversation that you had with your mother when she started to help you.
She agreed that she would help me to where
Tell me about the conversation. Now, I'll decide whether she agreed to help you. Okay, tell me about the conversation.
Well, it came to the point where we were discussing the finances at my house. She had told me that she would help me take care of my bills, to bring my bills to her, bring her my paychecks every 2 weeks, and she would pay my bills. She did make a loan to me at one point in time for an attorney, which has already been settled and taken care of between me and her.
How much was that?
$2,500.
Is that right?
That is correct.
And he paid you back?
Not yet.
We have a settlement agreement to pay that back.
Settlement agreement from where?
That she wrote up and I signed that I would pay it back over the course of the next however many months at $100 a month.
When did you do that?
Roughly about 3 weeks ago.
You have a copy of that?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see it, please. Oh, so she had sued you for this?
Yes, ma'am.
But your lawyer was only $2,500.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right? So why did you agree to pay her on $4,425?
There was past issues of finances where she had loaned me money to pay off a probation officer that I also agree that I do owe her.
How much was the probation officer?
$1,900.
Okay. Now tell me about this other money that she says she laid out for you for other bills, and it's clear, you agree, Miss Robinson, am I correct, that he was turning over his paycheck to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were paying the bills?
Yes, ma'am.
You were paying his rent?
Yes, ma'am.
You were paying child support?
Yes, ma'am.
How much child support?
believe there were 3 payments that I made in the amount of $280 plus a $5 charge for the cashier's check. And there were past due bills that were his and his wife's.
What about the $14.40 he gave you biweekly? What'd you do with that?
It was not $14.40. His net pay is $1,023.07 every other week.
Is that right?
That's roughly.
Okay, so that's $2,000 a month. That's plenty of money to pay his rent. Plenty of money to pay the last 2 payments of child support. Where's that money?
The cell phone bill was quite large every month.
Well, tell me what the cell phone bill was.
There were 3 months that I paid, $419.15.
Just a second. What was one cell phone for $400 a month?
I'm a district manager. I have 10 stores that I have to stay in touch with on a regular basis throughout the day.
Well, then your company pays for that.
They reimburse a small portion.
Then you take care of that. Then you give that back to your mom. We're paying legitimate expenses for which you do not get reimbursed. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when you took his paycheck, and you took his paycheck since June?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right? Did you tell him each month when he went over what he had given you?
Yes, ma'am. I showed him the check register and how low my funds, my own personal funds, were getting. And he says, "Don't worry, Mom." He says, "I'll pay it all back."
He already owed you $4,400, Miss Robinson. Some of it he owed you for more than a year. How could you legitimately believe that your son was going to pay you back for all this stuff when he hadn't even paid you back money that he owed you for a year and a half? How did you legitimately believe? I'm asking your legitimate expectation that your son was going to have more money to pay you back when he hadn't fulfilled what you claim, and in a settlement you say were obligations that existed almost 2 years. Come on, let's be real. When did you stop giving your mother your salary check?
Beginning to mid-July.
So that's June and half of July. That's a month and a half. And it is your claim, madam, I'm just curious, it's your claim that in the month and a half you laid out for him, for which you were not reimbursed by his salary checks, $4,313.50. Is that right?
That is correct.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you. And I don't believe that you had a legitimate expectation in that month and a half that he was going to be able to pay you back. If, in fact, you laid that out for him, I don't believe that. I believe that you said, "I'll help you out, I'll pay your bills, give me your salary, I'll try to act as your accountant and make sure that all of these bills are paid and in some organized fashion." Was it your wife who was responsible for paying the bills in your house, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
So you didn't know how to do that?
Not very good with money.
No, okay. So you gave, instead of giving your wife the money, you gave your mother the money?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what happened?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you shouldn't have done it, Miss Robinson. He's your son. That's what you're supposed to do. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Yeah, this is case number 229 on the calendar in the matter of Allgaier versus Palazzolo. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have seats.
Miss Allgaier, you and the defendant had a relationship and lived together, according to what I read, for a few months.
Yes.
You became pregnant, had a fight, and you were escorted away by the police. It is your claim that the defendant kept some of your property.
Yes, ma'am.
And you also think that he emotionally disturbed you.
Yes.
You're suing him for money because you were saddened by the fact that you had this baby and he's not sure if it's his and hasn't had any contact with the baby, so you're sad. I don't know if you get money for that, but we'll find out. Mr. Palazzolo says that sometime prior to this major fight, when you finally were escorted out by the police, you had destroyed his favorite magazine collection by pouring something on it. Is that right?
She spray painted them and threw them away.
And that since he's remarried, you have embarked on a campaign of harassment for which he wants to be reimbursed. His harassment, he only wants $400 for, so it couldn't be that terrible. Okay, when did you live together? Start and finish.
He signed the lease on, I believe it was May 24th, and I moved out on the 28th of August of 2002.
When did you move in with him? Was that on the 24th of May?
No, I moved in with him about 3 weeks prior to that, at his mother's house.
So the beginning of May?
Yes, ma'am.
August 28th is when the police escorted you out?
Yes.
Okay. What items do you claim you left behind when you were escorted out by the police?
I have a list. Do you want a list?
Is it a very long list?
No, it's not very long.
And this is August 28th of 2002?
Yes.
What took you so long to get to court?
Being a single parent's pretty difficult.
We're talking a year later, madam. What took you so long to get to court?
Well, it took me a while to get all of my things in order.
Look, show this to the defendant, please. All right, now I've seen what kind of items you're talking about. I'll take the list back, Bert. We're talking about 2 oven mitts, a colander for spaghetti. We're talking about a cutlery tray, a blue-green tumbler, a toilet bowl brush, 4 ice cube trays, 2 plates, 2 bowls, 2 washcloths. So let's get to what happened on the 28th of August when you were escorted out.
I found out I was pregnant, and everything just started going downhill after that in the relationship. And he was working major hours at work while working. And one night I asked him if he was cheating on me, and he was like, "You're crazy." And that was the night prior to the 28th. And we got in a big fight that night. The next day, we were fighting all day. Later that night, he was picking me up to throw me out of our apartment when I was 2.5 months pregnant. And
Did you scratch him first?
No, I scratched him to put me down when he was literally picking me up to throw me out of our apartment. And then I went to the store with our roommate, and he called the police, and when we got back, the police were there and they arrested me.
They arrested you because they saw evidence that you had assaulted him?
That I scratched him, yes. But I also had a bruise on my leg, but they told me that I could talk to the judge about that.
Did you plead guilty to assaulting him?
I pled not guilty, but then whenever I went for my actual court date, they told me that I would get a lesser sentence if I was to plead guilty. So yes, I pled guilty in the end.
When you were escorted out by the police, did you have an opportunity to get your clothes?
No.
When did you come back for your clothes?
I never did because he had gotten a restraining order. So my father and my brother went over there to get my things, and he had already packed them up. And I had a list for him, and they asked him about the other things, and he said that he got rid of them.
This is not a lot of stuff, madam.
It's not a lot of stuff.
This is nonsense stuff. It's ridiculous. Did he ever sue you for the assault?
No.
Call it even. Now let's get to the counterclaim.
Okay.
And let's get there fast.
To start, Your Honor, we had to move out of my mother's house because she made it so difficult. She couldn't keep a job. So therefore, all these items that she's bought pretty much came out of my wallet.
I already took care of that.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about your counterclaim.
Okay.
Pay attention. We're over that.
The night before the police came out, she wanted to fight, and she wanted to do it in front of my roommate, which is out in the living room. That is when I picked her up. There was no picking up the day after. I picked her up, carried her into the room so we could talk, because she likes to have a show and she likes to fight in front of people. She can't do it between me and her. So the next day, me and my roommate, we went out, came back. I looked out on the window ledge. A magazine of mine was spray painted, and I asked her, you know, where is everything? And she told me she spray painted them, threw them away. At this point, I was a little upset. The police were called out. They were called out 3 times that day. First 2 times, they
What day are you talking about,
The
sir?
27th of August.
Of August, so the
Yep.
day before.
No, I'm sorry. It was the 28th.
What day did you spray paint his magazines?
I didn't spray paint his
What'd you do to the magazine?
I spray painted one magazine.
And what'd you do with it?
It was on the windowsill.
When? What date?
On the 28th.
Go ahead.
So they had to come out 3 times. The second time is when she really abused me. I had scratches all over my back that turned into a couple of scars. The third time they came out, a female officer came. She seen the scratches. She agreed to arrest her for domestic violence. Now, at this case, all I wanted her to do is just to leave. So that's why I didn't press charges. The state of Michigan is the one that pressed charges on her and put the restraining order.
I want to know what your counterclaim is about.
The due harassment, she found out that I had a girlfriend, and that's when all heck broke loose. She wrote a letter to my corporation.
Did you file? To your corporation?
Yes.
Let me see what she wrote to your corporation.
This was a couple months after the court case happened. I also...
You wrote a letter to the defendant's employer. He has an employee living with him, an employee that works in the same store, and you are sure that that's against company policy. You give the employee's name. And then you say that he also has a mother and brother working for him. And I'm not sure if this is company policy or not, but it seems to me that this is unfair treatment to other employees and more favored towards those particular family members. And then you name them. Why in the world would you send this kind of a letter?
That's what I put in there. I didn't say anything
Why
about...
in the world would you send this letter?
I don't know. I guess out of vengeance. I don't
Right.
know.
There was no reason for you to write this letter except to harass him, is that right?
I wasn't harassing him.
Of course you were. Well, who are you harassing? The corporation?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
If it is mine, I'm going to fight for custody.
Right now, instead of fighting for custody, why don't you fight to find out if this is your child?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Emily Allgaier says ex-boyfriend Ken Palazzolo owes for the return of her belongings. Ken is countersuing, claiming Emily destroyed his magazine collection and slandered him at work.
What else?
I also had the police reports from for damaging my property.
I'm not interested in your magazine, sir.
She wasn't able to contact me, and she called me many times. And as soon as she found out that I was married is when all this took place.
Has she ever taken you to court to establish paternity of this child?
No, the front of the court's really slow. I just have to wait to be contacted by them.
So you did file a lawsuit?
Yes, ma'am. Well, just for child support, yes.
Well, paternity, because he says he wants, I assume you want a blood test.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you file that lawsuit?
In the beginning of May of 2003.
In any event, I'm dismissing your claim because you have no case against him for this property. I do find, however, that this letter was sent maliciously and for no reason. You can't do that. You can't conduct business that way, young lady. I mean, the two of you were foolish enough, after knowing each other for a few months and having a tumultuous relationship, you were foolish enough to get pregnant and have a child. That was pretty stupid, right?
Yes.
Now, you understand that if this is your child, is there a strong possibility that that's true?
I honestly, since then, find out she slept with two men while we were together while I was away on business at the time when the baby was conceived.
So you're not sure?
No, not at all.
No, okay.
That's what he heard from someone else, so...
Listen, truth of the matter is, you don't have to wait for the courts to go for a blood test. I assume that you want to know whether this is your child or not. Is that right?
The front of the court...
I assume that you want to know whether this is your child or not. Is that right?
Yes.
Because if this is your child, times are wasted. You don't want to not have a relationship with your daughter, do you?
No.
So then why don't you make arrangements between the two of you to go and have a blood test?
Contacted the front of the court, and they said that it was cheaper to go through them. So
cheaper for who? Cheaper for your daughter?
Cheaper for me.
Cheaper for him, but all the while he's missing out on his daughter's life.
If it is not mine, then I do not care.
But the point is, if it is your child, you don't want another year to go by without her knowing you.
No, but she, also, if it is mine, I'm going to fight for custody because she...
You right now want, instead of fighting for custody, why don't you fight to find out if this is your child? So the difference is $400?
Yes.
And what's the name of the blood service there?
They sent it to Washington. I didn't bring that information with me.
Well, you're going to get the name of the lab because I think that you really want to know, don't you, whether this is your child or not?
Yes.
And that the sooner that happens, the better off you are. Is that right?
Yes.
So what we're going to do is, I'm awarding you $400 on your counterclaim, sir, because I believe that she did, in fact, harass you. But the check's going to be made payable to the blood bank. So the two of you and this little baby can go and have blood tested and find out whether or not this is your child. Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yes, ma'am.
That way you can find out. You got it?
I don't need to find out. He does.
No. You need to find out. When you have a child out of wedlock, stupidly, you're living at his mother's house. Did you get thrown out of his mother's house?
No, we didn't. It was my choice to move out.
And what about your house with your parents? Did you get thrown out of there initially?
Not technically.
Not technically. And how old are you?
I'm 18.
And then when I read your complaint, you said he told you he wanted his life complete with a baby, so you got pregnant. This was not an accident.
No, it was not an accident.
Right. This was not an accident. This was done on purpose. Somebody who's 17 years old who has no job, who has no future.
I had a job. Yes, I had a job.
Didn't last long because, according to what I read, your job didn't last long because his mother said you shouldn't work so hard, so you quit your job.
Well, that was my second job.
Do you understand?
Yes, but
I believe it's more important for you to find out, for him to find out, whether this is his child than for you to get any money. Either of you. I don't understand why you would come in and sue over two potholders, why you would come in and sue him over a spoon, a ladle, a green-blue dish, and you sue her over this letter, which clearly didn't damage your job, right?
Well, it did because I had to take a couple of days off.
I sympathize with you, sir. Listen to me. If, in fact, this is your child, the fact that you have turned away and said, it's not my responsibility, is very unkind. to both her and this little girl. So it seems to me a stand-up fellow would say, if this is my child, I want to know. And I want to know now. Not 6 months from now, not 8 months from now. And then have the audacity to say, if it's mine, I'm going to fight for custody. Whenever. But by that time, your daughter's 2 years old. She doesn't even know who you are.
Well, in defense of myself, the state did have a restraining order, so I was not able to contact the mother of the baby.
Well, you don't have to contact her. Go to court and file a lawsuit. They'll order a blood test.
Could I please, my mother did send him a certified letter letting him know that I did have the baby.
What difference does it make? If he says he's not sure that the baby is his, what difference does it make?
I don't know, but
he wants to know. Instead of money for your harassment, he's going to take a test, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Yeah, I had a very, very good collection.
His porno magazines.
I know she's, so.
He hasn't seen his child and she's 5 months old.
I don't think it's mine.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Flores versus Etty, step forward, please.
Business owner Wanda Flores is suing the father of her daughter's boyfriend, environmental technician Don Etty, for the value of a car. Wanda claims Don traded in her daughter's vehicle without her permission.
Miss Flores, is this your daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that your son?
Yes, it is.
Miss Flores, your daughter and the defendant's son have a child together.
Yes.
Your daughter is
17.
And your son is
18.
And how old is the child?
4 months.
So they were both underage when this child was conceived.
Yes.
In December of 2002, you claim that you gave your daughter an old car. In January of 2003, Mr. Etty took your daughter, I assume his son, down to a car dealership. Your daughter signed over the title. Mr. Etty purchased a newer car, right?
Yes.
He purchased it in his name, but with the understanding that the kids would be driving it and that your daughter and you would make the payments on the car.
Yes.
Then something happened and his son went to jail. And you claim that despite the fact that you and or your daughter were making payments on the car, Mr. Etty took the car back because it was in his name. And he says it got repossessed by the bank. So far, you following this, this Gone with the Wind?
I got it.
So what you want is the value of the car that you gave your daughter in December of 2002.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Etty tells a whole different story, which I'm going to let him get to. When you gave your daughter this car in 2002 in December, what date in December was it?
It was like a week before Christmas.
And where did you get the car from?
I've had it for years.
Was it running?
Yes. We just put a new front end on it. We really did a lot of work to it.
Did you have a conversation with Mr. Etty about trading in this car?
No, I didn't.
Did you give your daughter the title to the car?
No, I went, as soon as they got the car, they called me and asked me if I'd come and sign the title over.
Now I understand. So you gave them a gift, but there was an understanding with Mr. Etty that they were going to use that car as a trade-in.
Yes.
Okay. Now what was the agreement as far as payment?
The car was supposed to be put in their name. I know right now they couldn't put it in their name because they're teenagers.
Correct.
But William turns 18 in August.
At the time, they couldn't put the car in their name.
Yeah.
And they probably wouldn't give him a loan anyway.
Exactly.
So he put it in his name.
Yes.
What was the arrangement as far as payment was my question.
I was going to pay the payments with Michelle, and the car was supposed to be after they got old enough to put it back in their name.
Right. January, February, when was the car repossessed?
I don't know.
What month, Mr. Etty?
It was last month.
Why?
Because of default on payment.
How many payments were missed?
One.
Which payment?
April's
April.
payment, yes. Your Honor, it was due on the 8th of every month.
And there was no payment made in April?
No.
And that's why you took the car back?
Yes, ma'am.
So you would agree that if she can prove to me that she made April's payment, you're in trouble, right?
Yes.
Show me.
I don't have any proof. I really don't.
So what am I supposed to do?
I think they deserve a car for their new baby.
Well, Miss Flores, that's nice. There used to be a program, called The Millionaire. You wait for John Bears for Tipton to come knock at your door and give you $1 million, and then you go and buy whatever you like. You had an agreement. You had an agreement with Mr. Etty. Your agreement was that you would make the payments on this loan every month. He says that he repossessed the car because you did not make April's payment that was due April 8th, and he repossessed the car in May. And then it got repossessed by the bank because he couldn't make the payments either. My question to you is very simple. Show me you made April's payment, and then you have a case. You tell me I can't. And I say, so what do you want from me? And you say, I think they deserve to have a car. So maybe you can convince Bird to buy him a car.
Your Honor,
if you breached your contract with Mr. Eddie, you're not...
I didn't have no contract with him.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
You just testified under oath that you did. You don't understand, Miss Flores. You testified under oath that you had a contract, a verbal contract with him, that you would make the payments on this car.
No, I had a verbal contract with my daughter.
You can't.
Why?
She's 17. She can't make a contract. Only he can make a contract. And you testified that you had a contract. The contract was with him, that the payments would be made, and April's payment wasn't made. He had an absolute right to take back the car. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Yeah, this is case number 220 on the calendar in the matter of Bailey versus Bohan. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat.
Ms. Bailey, it is your claim that you befriended the defendant when she needed a friend, and she expressed her gratitude for your friendship by punching you in the mouth and breaking a tooth. You want her to compensate you for that.
Correct.
Ms. Bohan says that it was you who instigated this argument by poking her and punching her in the chest, and she merely responded, and there was no way that she could have caused any damage to your tooth. How do you know each other?
We were neighbors. We lived across the street from each other, and we became close friends over the course of several months.
How did that happen?
My husband and I came home one evening, and Suzanne was sitting out on her front curb crying, and it was early December. It was really cold out, and she was just in her pajamas. And I walked across the street to check on her and see if she wanted to come in the house and warm up, and she told us that she had just had a fight with her husband and her mother-in-law, and that her husband had locked her out of the house.
Do you have children?
Yes.
How many children?
2.
How old are they?
One is almost 3. The other is my stepson. He's almost 12.
Separated from your husband now, or are you together?
Getting back together.
Okay. When did this incident occur with your tooth?
March 28th.
Tell me what happened.
Suzanne had been very ill about a week prior to that evening, and she had been to a counseling session with her husband that day, and in the course of the counseling session mentioned that she had to leave because she had to go to the doctor, and she was afraid to go to the doctor by herself, so she called my husband to meet her at her doctor's because it was right by his job. He did that. Her husband then called me and said that he had just walked in on the two of them hugging and kissing. So, quite honestly, I was pretty upset with that. Mm-hmm. I called my husband and said, I suggest that you come home right now and explain to me the phone call I just got. Mm-hmm. He came home, and when we walked up to the house, there was really loud music. We knocked several times, and it took, 3 or 4 knocks before she finally came to the door. And it was obvious to us, because of the time that we have spent with Suzanne, that she was drunk. She let us in the house, and instantly she was attitudinal with me.
Well, what did you say to her?
I said, we'd like to talk to you. And she said, well, I'm busy fixing my son dinner. And this was like at 9 o'clock at night. And I made a comment, well, don't you think it's kind of late to be feeding your child? Shouldn't you have been doing that a lot earlier rather than drinking? Well, she took exception to that. And in the meantime, my husband was asking the neighbor to leave because he was the one that had brought the alcohol into the home. And Suzanne...
So your husband said to her guest, leave the house?
Yes. He said, you're not being the kind of friend that Suzanne needs. Suzanne's been going through a nasty divorce.
I got it.
Anyway, I told her that Brian had called me, and I told her what Brian had said to me, which is
Brian is the
yes.
husband.
Yes. And she said, you're a liar. He never said anything like that. And I said, well, then let's get him on the telephone and you can find out. Well, I called him, and he could tell as soon as he heard her voice that she was drunk. And so he said, sounds like all of you are partying, so you should go home and go to bed. And he wouldn't talk to us. And I don't remember what her exact comment was, but I was doing this.
You were pointing in her face.
I was pointing at her. I wasn't in her face. I was pointing at her. And she said, get your blank finger out of my face. And I said, I said something, and out of nowhere she came around with her right arm and punched me in the jaw.
And broke the tooth.
It knocked my bottom jaw into my upper jaw. It broke my bottom tooth, my bottom molar, and it broke 2 teeth in my upper denture.
First of all, what is the show and tell that I have here on the desk?
These are gifts that I received from Maggie after that night. However, I'd like to clarify a couple of...
These are gifts that you received?
These are gifts that were brought over before Maggie knew she was leaving her husband, and she wanted my son to have this...
She brought your son over that.
She brought over that and some animal crackers, some fishy crackers, and some candles. But first of all, I'd like to clarify, I did not have my son that evening, and my son was not home. I was not drinking. My friend was on a way to a party, and he had some alcohol that he was going to bring down the street to a block party. So I was not drinking that night. Need to make that real clear. And when we heard them pounding on the door, they keyed into the house. I didn't answer the door. They let themselves in with a house key of mine. And so at that time, when I walked in the kitchen, that's when I saw Maggie and her husband standing there. And Maggie came at me and started pointing right at my nose and then pushing on my chest with her pointer finger, going, listen, young lady, you better start telling me the truth. And I just went like this, like, get your hand away from me. And told them that I wanted to go to bed, that it was too late for them to be over and they needed to go home.
And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
The first thing he said to me was, Earl, don't be upset. We're having a dancing party. And he was drunk as a pig, and so was she.
And later today...
You washed the bowl by hand?
Correct.
And she washed the bowl by hand. How do you know she broke your bowl?
Because it was in perfect condition.
How do I know that?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Maggie Bailey says former friend Suzanne Bohan punched her in the mouth in a drunken rage.
Can I see your dental bills, please? Mr. Bailey, I'd like you to stand up, please, sir.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Mr. Bailey, you understand that you had no right to tell this neighbor to leave her house.
You bet. Yes, ma'am.
I just want you to understand that. Just because you befriend somebody and you do things that are nice for them doesn't give you a license to run their life.
Your Honor, I'm not sure I agree with that. We were drug into this woman's life for 4 months through this divorce she went through. We dealt with quite a bit.
How old are you, sir?
Pardon me? 47.
How old are you?
35.
Okay. How tall are you?
5'10".
How tall are you?
Almost 4'11".
Okay. She can't drag you anywhere.
True.
You can only become involved in somebody else's life if you permit yourself to be involved in their life. So
I agree. And we did that.
You may have been, for totally altruistic reasons, befriended her.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't say you were sucked in. You weren't sucked in.
No, we were not.
You chose
That's
to become
correct.
involved. Okay? That still doesn't give you license. If you don't like her actions, then what you do is you cut it off and fold your arms. You cut it off. Are you and your wife in the process of separating?
Certainly not.
No.
Or not?
Or not.
Good. Well, that's what she seemed to indicate.
Well,
She was wrong.
a lot of what she indicated is take it for what it's worth.
I just wanted to know. Okay. So I have to make a determination, Ms. Bohan, whether or not you assaulted the plaintiff in either this kind of motion or, as you indicated, this kind of motion, and whether either one of those motions causes you to be responsible for $2,800 worth of dental work. The person who was at your house, is that Bob?
Mm-hmm.
What time did he leave?
I'm not exactly sure what
I am.
time it was.
Before or after they left?
He left, well, because when they arrived, they were in a heated argument, and Earl made it very clear he did not want Bob in the house, so Bob took off and went to his other party.
Your Honor, may I speak?
Sure.
I'd like to qualify what she's saying, if you don't mind. When we did not key our way into the home, first of all. That did not happen.
How did you get
the
there?
keys were returned to this woman weeks before this by way of putting them under her doormat.
Fine. Okay.
We got in because she opened the door. She opened the door after repeated pounding on the door because the music was extremely loud. I walked in the home, and I found Mr. Krevlin hiding in the garage. The first thing he said to me was, "Earl, don't be upset. We're having a dancing party." And he was drunk as a pig, and so was she. I said, "Bob, you're not being a friend to her. Take your liquor and go home. This woman has issues with drinking. You know it. I know it. This is not being a friend."
How did you know she had issues with drinking, Mr. Bailey?
Because she repeatedly told us of her issues with drinking. Repeatedly.
Yes.
During the course of becoming friends with Suzanne, she asked me to go to court with her several times for her divorce case and child custody case. And her attorney made it very clear, because Suzanne is a recovering alcoholic, that if she took so much as one drink, she would lose her son.
Is that true?
Yes.
I find that the plaintiff has sustained her burden, at least to my satisfaction, that the injuries were caused by the defendant, who was probably drunk as a skunk, and I'm awarding her the amount of the dental bill, which is $2,868. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
The friendship went south when Maggie thought I was having an affair with her husband.
Unfortunately, I'm a person that tries to help people, so just be careful, I guess. Go with your eyes wide open.
The drinking was not an issue.
I'd do it again for another friend. I would.
They were terrific friends at the time when I needed help.
I felt that we were used by Suzanne, and we tried to be a friend to her and pretty much got slapped in the face for it.
Now, this is case number 419 on the calendar, the matter of Lane versus Thomas. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Mr. Lane, Ms. Thomas was a tenant of yours,
Yes, that's correct.
and it is your claim that she owes you for rent certain property that she took from the apartment or house that she had rented when she ultimately moved out, and that she also owes you for filing false charges against you in her application for a protective order. You claim that Ms. Thomas and her family are professional squatters.
Yes, I do.
Which means that they go into people's homes, they rent them, they pay rent for a while, and they stop paying. And since it takes very often 6 months to a year to get them out, they don't pay rent, and they go from place to place, and that's a scam.
It is a scam.
And you're prepared to demonstrate to me that Ms. Thomas and her family have a history of doing the same kind of thing to other landlords.
Yes, I do.
And I'd be interested to hear about that. In any event, when did you rent? Is it an apartment or a house?
It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, upper middle income with a
When?
pool. February, I rented her the home. She signed a lease on February 27th.
Of
She moved
2004?
in on 2004. She moved in on March 15th, 2004.
Who moved in?
Valina Thomas, and the premises were leased to her and her daughter. In addition to her moving in, she moved her brother in.
No, just a second. Who signed the lease?
Valina Thomas and Thomas.
Is that your husband?
Yes, ma'am.
How much was the rent, Mr. Lane?
I asked for first, last, and the security deposit, $1,250, Your Honor. $1,250.
I'm going to ask the questions.
Yes, ma'am.
You're going to give me the answers. If I need for you to expand, you're going to do that
Thank you.
for me. $1,250 a month.
$1,250 a month.
And they gave you first, last, and security.
That's correct.
Okay, so they paid for March, and it was a year lease?
The check for March, Your Honor, was
No, was it a
dishonored.
year lease?
It is a year lease, yes, Your Honor.
The check for March was what, sir?
The check for March was dishonored by the bank. She alleged that a girlfriend had given her a $569 check.
Okay, so the
But
check for March was bounced.
Yes, Your Honor.
Did she ever pay March rent?
She did, Your Honor.
Okay, when did she pay March rent?
She paid March rent prior to April 15th.
And she paid April's rent?
She did pay April's rent, Your Honor.
And what about May?
She did not pay May's, June's, or July's.
Did she and her husband and the rest of the people that she moved into the house, did they live there May, June, and July?
Yes, they did, Your Honor. They lived there through August.
Through August?
Well, actually, they had abandoned the property, and I lived out of state, and I repossessed the property with a writ of possession on July 29th.
I just want to know,
Yes, ma'am.
when was the last time they lived in the house?
I wouldn't know. I didn't come back to the property until August the 7th.
Okay, when was the last time you lived in the house, Ms. Thomas?
July 31st.
Fine. Can I see your rent receipt from May?
Did not pay the rent from May till June. Did
Why?
not.
You lived there in May.
Yes, ma'am. The rent was due on the 15th of every month.
Right.
I paid April's rent from April 15th to May 15th.
Right.
We notified Mr. Lane that my husband's job was transferring him. First, we notified Mr. Brown when we paid April's rent that my husband's job was transferring him to Sarasota, Florida, which is 2 hours away from where we were living. He said, just let me know the date when you're going to be moving. Told Mr. Lane called. He said, I'll tell you what. He says, you paid half of May's rent, and I will return your security deposit if you're out before June the 15th. However, when I asked for a letter stating the fact, everything changed. He sent me a 3-day notice to vacate. Then he sent me another 3-day notice from a realtor company.
So what?
A month later.
So what? A month later, you were supposed to be out. Why weren't you out in June?
Because he didn't follow his agreement either.
Why weren't you out in June?
Because our house wasn't ready that we were moving to. And
then why didn't you pay rent?
We told him we were moving, and he said that...
Just a second, I don't understand something. Just a minute. Miss Thomas, if what you're telling me is that you moved and that's why you didn't pay rent, that's fine. What you're telling me now is that you told him you were moving, but you didn't move because your house wasn't ready and you didn't pay rent. Just a second.
Okay.
Let's get to objective facts.
Okay.
Miss Thomas.
Okay.
Who is this?
This is my daughter, Heather.
All right. Is she a witness?
Yes, she is.
Fine. Then, unfortunately, she has to stay here.
That's fine.
If you live in an apartment or a house that doesn't belong to you, pursuant to a lease, if you live there, you have to pay rent.
I agree.
I don't want to hear any baloney about why you didn't pay rent.
I never said I didn't know it. I owe him for May and June.
Oh, well, that's not what you're saying here.
I have it.
Just a second. I don't see in here that that's what you say, that you owe him for May and June. Let me see. In June, we could no longer afford the premises. That's what you wrote in your answer. That's what you swore to. And also, we found out that my husband was being transferred in the latter part of July.
Yes, ma'am.
What does that have to do with May and... Stop playing with your papers. So that has nothing to do with May and June's rent.
I agree. I mean, we owe May. We owe May and June.
Let's move on. We informed the plaintiff that we would be moving, and Mr. Lane was not very happy. He said that if we paid half of May's rent, he would refund our deposit when we moved. However, the money we had given him when we moved in was enough to cover up our rent until July, so we weren't going to pay him anymore. You got a whole bunch of excuses here, and you can't seem to keep your story straight. You lived there in May, you lived there in June, you lived there in July, and you didn't pay rent. Nowhere in your answer do you say, well, I do owe him for May and June.
I've always said I owed him, even in the court doc.
Would you do me a favor, please, Bird? Would you show this answer, this sworn answer that she signed to her, and ask her, maybe I missed it, you know, I don't know how I scored in reading. Show me in your answer where you say you acknowledge that you owe him for 2 months' rent.
I never acknowledged that I owed him for 2 months' rent.
Until now. Oh, fine. Fine, then we get it now. Now you owe him for 2 months' rent.
Well, I also acknowledged when we went to Brevard County Courthouse that I owed him for 2 months' rent.
Just a second. I'm not talking about any place else that you went when he tried to get you evicted. I'm talking about small claims court, which is where you are. So you forgot to put that down in your answer that you owe him for 2 months' rent.
Okay.
Is that right? You forgot.
Yes,
fine. You owe him for 2 months' rent.
Yes,
so your rent was $1,250 times 2 is $2,500. So that you owe him. That you acknowledge you owe him.
Yes,
is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You got to pay your bills, madam. If you don't pay your bills, bad things happen. They turn off your lights, they turn off your water, they turn off your electricity. That's what happens when you don't pay your bills.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Larry Lane says ex-tenant Kay Thomas owes for 3 months' rent. Larry says Kay is a squatter.
Now, when did you start eviction proceedings against her?
I attempted to start eviction proceedings in May.
So you already knew that this was a lost cause with these people?
I didn't believe it was a lost cause, Your Honor.
Well, then why would you choose to evict them?
I put a 3-day notice on her door precautionarily.
Sir, they owe you $2,500 for the 2 months' rent.
What about July, Your Honor?
Shh. Just a minute.
Okay.
Now, did you get first month's rent and last month's rent?
I did, Your Honor.
Just a second. Listen to me. The last month's rent would have been July. Is that right, Mr. Lane?
Yes, ma'am.
What about the security deposit?
Well, Your Honor, there was extensive damage to my home and legal fees.
How much were your legal fees?
$691.
Okay. And what kind of damage was done to the home?
Well, Your Honor, the screens on all windows were damaged. All the blinds were damaged.
Do you have any photographs?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
I'd like to see them, please.
I also have receipts for blinds.
How did these windows get broken?
Can I see those pictures? I haven't seen them.
Sure.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have pictures also.
I'd like to see them.
Before we moved in and the day we moved out. Would you like to see those?
I would.
These are the 2 screens that he's claiming on the kitchen. That's the 31st. You can see that those are not broke. Living room blind, kitchen. And the other one that we admitted to. These are the 2 that we admitted to as far as the blinds go. The dates are on them, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, so I have broken blinds.
And can I clarify something really quick? He said that me, my husband, and my daughter moved into the house. I have 2 daughters, and he met them both. He also came 2 days before he left for Bay City, Michigan. He came to my house, my last residency, unannounced, but he came.
You mean the new place?
The old place. Prior to moving to his residency, I lived in Cocoa Beach, and he came to my residency 2 days before I signed the lease with him.
Yeah.
He's talking about me moving my brother and my sister-in-law in. He met them. He knew them. He knew they were going to be staying there with us for a month or so till they found their own place.
Mr. Lane?
Yes, ma'am.
Defendant acknowledges at this juncture that she owes you 2 months' rent. I would take that and be happy.
What about the furniture she stole?
Now let's get to the furniture.
All right.
Show me pictures of the furniture.
I can't. I can only show you receipts, Your Honor, because I'm
What
having
furniture did
photographs.
you take, Miss Thomas? You indicate that you took some stuff from the house.
I didn't take anything. I sold it.
You sold it?
Yes, ma'am. I have receipts to that, where I sold it to and how much I sold it for.
Let me see.
The last 2 pages.
Miss Thomas, why would you sell property that didn't belong to you?
I sold the dining room set and the bedroom set.
Why would you sell property that didn't belong to you?
We had an agreement in the lease for me to purchase it.
You mean you purchased it? Did you purchase it?
No, we did not pay it in full. No, sir. No, ma'am.
Okay. So you had a provision in the lease if you wanted to purchase it, but you didn't purchase it, and yet you sold it.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you can't do that.
I understand that. I did it out of anger because of what he done. He tried to have my electricity cut off.
Your Honor, I have a subpoena from Florida Power and Light showing that I didn't turn her power off.
You tried.
But not only had she given him a false security number to get her power, she bounced checks on him, and that the power was turned off. And here it is, Your Honor,
Can I see it, please?
along with the subpoena.
Fine.
She also gave him a false address where she was moving to send the final bill. I corrected it for Florida Power and Light so they can collect from this deadbeat.
Shh. You owe money?
Yes, I'm paying them $75 a month. Yes, ma'am.
For money that you owe them?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you gotta pay your bills, madam. If you don't pay your bills, bad things happen. They turn off your lights, they turn off your water, they turn off your electricity. That's what happens when you don't pay your bills. Listen, you can't sell property that doesn't belong to you.
I understand that.
You didn't pay your electric bill. That's why you're paying $75 to make up what you owe them.
Your Honor, her lights were turned off June 26th. Okay.
Not interested in that. How much is this stuff worth, sir? Dining room table with a hutch, a wicker bedroom set,
King-size bed,
king-size bed.
armoire.
How much did she agree to pay in the lease for the things that she sold?
She was going to pay $50 a month, but never consummated that.
No. Mr. Lane.
She was going to pay $50 a month and the balance on conclusion of the lease.
Okay,
the lease agreement shows
$50
that.
a month.
Paragraph 22,
Times
page
12 is $600.
Yes, Your Honor.
And the balance upon the termination of the lease, what was the furniture sold for, Mr.
The
Lane?
furniture was sold for $1,250.
$1,250 in total.
Total.
Is
Yes,
that right?
Your Honor. Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Then that's what you owe him.
I understand that. Never said I didn't know him for it.
Yes, you did. Show her the answer. She said the stuff he left in the house was a bunch of junk.
I was referring to
Just a second.
I was referring to the refrigerator.
Show me in here where
It's
you
not in that
acknowledge that you owe him money for the furniture that you sold.
It's not in there, ma'am.
Right. It's not in there.
I was referring to the refrigerator.
Mr. Lane,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like you to give me whatever proof you have that the Thomas family are squatters and scammers.
Please.
So far, I would tend to agree with you.
Your Honor, I did a background investigation, and I should have done this prior to it, but my grandson was in a hospital. This shows that she was evicted This is a background investigation from the internet that shows 6 bad checks and cable fraud.
You got anything else?
Yes, I do. She currently is in Bradenton, Florida, in a diversion program for first-time offenders for bad checks. And I don't know about anything else, Your Honor. I just knew
Is that all
this...
correct? Are you
Other bad checks, yeah, a bad check, yes, ma'am. It was the first time offender where I wrote a bad check, yes, ma'am.
It was the first time you got caught.
No. No, it's
It was the first time you
that-
got caught.
Your Honor, this account...
I don't understand you, Miss Thomas. I don't understand why you believe. How old are you?
19.
Ma'am.
Well, you know, she's not a baby, so she can be here.
Your Honor,
Listen.
this account was written on a closed account, which she alleged somebody had given her a check.
You already gave him a bad check.
May I
Come
see
on.
that
Closed
account?
account.
May I see that account, please? Yes, ma'am. And I took care of it. As soon as he told me that it had not been paid, I went and gave him the money. Took care of it.
Okay.
Took it out of the account.
I see it.
So
Your
it
Honor,
wasn't
she
that
told
he...
me that the check had bounced and yes, ma'am.
Mr. Lane,
Yes,
how long
ma'am.
have you been a landlord?
This was the first time I rented a piece of property, and I must have had stupid written right across my forehead.
That's true.
I understand. Your Honor, I have one other thing I'd like to say briefly.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, there was property in my garage, and when I reported my furniture missing to the police, they said it was a civil matter. They couldn't do anything. But the property that I had in my garage was a side-by-side refrigerator, a Craftsman lawnmower, and a power edger. She disposed of that equipment. I went back down to the police department. They sent me out to her house to inspect again to see if the property was moved indoors or in the backyard. And as I tried to go in, she had me arrested for battery.
He was not arrested, Your Honor. He was never charged.
She filed charges.
I have police reports.
Did you get your refrigerator back?
No. And
you
the
get
other
your-
landlord,
You didn't get it back. Did you get anything back that was in the garage?
no, I didn't get anything back.
Where's
Not
the
even
stuff?
the keys to the house.
Where's the stuff? I'm not talking about the keys. Where's the stuff?
Can I explain what led up to that?
No. I just asked you where the stuff is.
It's gone.
What do you mean it's
Mr.
gone?
Brown.
It went to the refrigerator fairy. Where did it go?
We got the junk guy got it because it was no good. The gasket on it was broke. It wasn't keeping the air in. It was leaking water. He left it. He did not want it.
Just a second. When did you get rid of it?
July the 8th.
Well, if it was bothering you, why didn't you get rid of it when you first moved in instead
We
of
were
July
in
the
the
8th?
we were in the process of cleaning out the house, getting everything done. We had talked to Mr. Brown. He said it was given to you, whatever. Mr. Lane didn't want it. Do whatever you wanted to do with it.
Did you say that to her?
No, ma'am.
We
Of
even
course
cleaned
not.
it out.
Of course not. Well,
Your Honor.
what you're supposed to do is
also-
I'm speaking.
Yes,
What you're
ma'am.
supposed to do is stop making excuses.
I'm not making excuses,
Well,
Your
you
Honor.
did. You made excuses. You made excuses to
But
me.
he's saying I destroyed his house. He inspected the house on
I'm
July
not
the 21st.
talking about the inspection of the house. I'm talking about several things. I'm talking about the rent that you owed him.
I agree.
For $2,500.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm talking about the furniture that you agreed to buy, which you didn't buy, which you sold.
Yes, ma'am.
So you owe him $1,250. I'm talking about the merchandise that was in the garage that you disposed of the same month that you moved out. The same month that you moved out. You didn't say to me, listen, he had all this junk in the garage and I was paying for the garage, so when we moved in, I got some junk guy to come over and get rid of it. You disposed of it the same month that you were moving. Ms. Thomas, you did the wrong thing. And what you're supposed to do, put that down. What you're supposed to do when you do the wrong thing, especially if you have a child here, is you're supposed to say, I did the wrong thing.
I did. I meant I did that.
Well, you didn't admit it to me in the answer. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Yes, this case number 468 on the calendar in the matter of Broussard versus D'Alessandro. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat, ma'am.
Mr. Broussard, this young lady used to be your landlord.
Yes.
And according to your complaint, she embarked upon a course of conduct of harassment, filing false restraining orders against you, ultimately evicting you from the place where you had lived for some period of time. You want to be compensated for that.
Right.
And Ms. D'Alessandro said everything that she said was in her applications were true, and you were a terrible tenant. You also have a claim against her for slander. You say that when you ultimately applied to other apartments to rent, and they called her to verify your tenancy, she said bad things about you, so it made it virtually impossible for you to get another apartment.
That's correct.
Now, I gather, Mr. Broussard, that you lived in this house. It was a house?
She lived in the house up front. I lived in an apartment in the back.
And you had lived there prior to Miss D'Alessandro moving in because a relative of hers owned the house, and you were the relative's tenant.
Right.
Who was the relative?
My mother.
And what was her name?
Loretta Wallace.
When did you first move into this apartment in the back?
It was approximately 7 years ago.
Did Loretta Wallace ever bring eviction proceedings against you?
Never.
When for the first time did you file notice to quit or pay against the plaintiff?
That would have been in early October 2003.
What happened?
After I had received title to the house, or during the time the transfer was going on, I was in the process of sort of getting my ducks in the row to start making renovations on the apartment building.
What apartment building?
There's the house in the front is where I live. There's a 3-unit apartment building at the rear of the property. And
you live in one of those units?
Right.
Go ahead.
Everything was going smoothly as far as I was concerned, and I had actually started to make renovations in one of the other apartments and had told Mr. Broussard and his girlfriend, I said, look, you know, I'm going to be doing the same thing to your unit at some point very soon, and, you know, just to let them know what was going on and that I didn't forget about them.
When you were making the renovations in the other unit, where were the tenants in the other unit?
That unit was vacant, and the renovations were very extensive.
Go ahead.
So at the end of September, I was at home and I was watering the lawn, and Mr. Broussard came and knocked on my screen door and was complaining about the fact that water was getting on his girlfriend's car. And I told him, I said, you know what, just a minute, I'm on the phone, I'll be with you as soon as I can. He insisted, and he became belligerent, and I stepped outside of the kitchen because I was going to go to the back and simply turn the water off just to get him off of my back. And then he engaged in this verbal tirade in my face so close that he started to spit on me. And it was at that time, it was like, okay, you know what, that's it. You know, I had to do what I felt I needed to do in order to ensure my personal safety, because I was living on the property at the same time, and I didn't feel comfortable with him being there anymore, let alone the fact that he and his girlfriend were going to have to move anyway, because I was going to have to gut the unit to renovate it.
Got it?
Got it.
I didn't have any problems with them, and neither
Let me
did my
ask you this
mother.
question, sir. You want to give me your version of what happened?
Yes, I do, ma'am.
On that date in
Part
October?
of that was true. She did have the sprinklers up real high, and she was home. I went and knocked on the door. I said, Maria, you're soaking our cars. And she looked at me and she said, well, you should have moved them, and slammed the door in my face. And I was shocked. I guess I was holding the screen door, and I must have closed it too hard, and I really upset her. Next thing I know, she comes flying out the door, getting in my face. Now, she's a woman challenging me as if she's a man. We exchanged a few words, a few unpleasantries, I won't lie about that. But I never put my hands on her, and I called myself, so you know what? Let me get away from her before she says I did something to her, before somebody sees me arguing with a woman. As I'm walking away, her boyfriend comes flying up, and I'm walking away going to my house. He comes and gets in my face, and he says, well, basically, Derek, you and Denise have to move. I said, who are you? He said, that's my girlfriend.
Would you stand up straight, please?
I said, well, this doesn't concern you. I said, I can stay here as long as I want to. You don't have anything to do with this property or this matter. I said, get out of my face. So I turned and I walked in the house. And me knowing her, the type of person she is, I knew she was going to do something treacherous, you know, by the 1st of the month. We decided we're going to make sure this rent is due exactly on the 1st. I don't want any funny business with her. Well, we paid our rent on the 1st. She accepted the rent. I have a canceled check. I have a receipt.
Can I see it, please? Ms. D'Alessandro, did you speak to an attorney before you decided that Mr. Broussard and his girlfriend were going to have to move so that you can do renovations?
Yes, I did, ma'am.
And did the attorney tell you that you can't have them move just because you decided to do renovations on their unit?
No, he did not.
He should have.
Well, and that
He should have.
Ma'am, that was not the reason why I proceeded with the eviction proceedings against Mr. Broussard.
Just
no,
a second.
it was not.
Oh, yeah, it was.
No, it was not.
The coincidence of you renovating one apartment and then saying to me a moment ago, and he was going to have to move anyway because I was going to totally gut his apartment. Oh, no, he wasn't.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Oh,
but that
no,
was
he
not
wasn't.
the reason why I filed for eviction against him.
That's
It was
the
not.
exact reason, because that's what the lawyer probably told you.
No, he did not
There has
tell
to
me
be a
that.
reason for you. Ms. D'Alessandro, I want to tell you something. You think you're smarter than I am?
I do
you
not,
are
ma'am.
not. You are not. And I've been a judge for a very long time, and things usually happen in a rhythm. And let me explain the rhythm to you that is factual. Fact is, he lived there since 1997. Fact is, between 1997 and 2003, neither you nor your mother before you had occasion to file any kind of charges against Mr. Broussard or his girlfriend. Fact. The same month, according to you, that the title passed to you in the house, you decided to get your ducks in the water and remodel the unit behind the house. And according to you, he came and got in your face on that day, and you decided you had to do something to get him out because he was going to, according to you, quote, a moment ago, he was going to have to move anyway because I was going to gut the apartment. That's what you just told me. Those are the objective facts. And what you would have me believe is that all of a sudden this man who had been a reasonable tenant for 7 years became a psychopath.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You just said to me the reason I gave him the notice to leave was because I felt unsafe. Well, what is it? Rent or unsafe? Think hard. Think hard. Rent, unsafe.
And later today,
I was pushed to the ground like this. I felt feet kicking my head and my neck.
And when the cops arrived, what happened, sir?
They cuffed me for drinking and being underage.
He was drunk.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Derek Broussard says former landlord Maria D'Alessandro had him falsely arrested for violating a restraining order. Derek also says after he moved out, Maria slandered him to potential landlords.
On October 1st, he gave you a check. It's dated September 30th.
Yes.
I have a receipt for it.
Yes,
Did you
ma'am.
file a notice to quit because he had not paid rent?
No, I was advised to file the 3-day as well as the 60-day based on the fact that Mr. Broussard was habitually late in paying his rent over a period of time.
Just a second. So what you're telling me is that you filed a notice for him to vacate the premises, not because he was late in October, because he wasn't late in October because he paid you the rent on time.
Right.
But because it started to bother you that before that he hadn't paid his rent.
It didn't bother me. It didn't bother me, and it didn't bother my mother.
So
at
what
all.
did you file a complaint for?
I filed the complaint because I felt unsafe with Mr. Broussard being there after he verbally attacked me.
Then what I'm saying to you is, you're not following me, madam. What I said was, he didn't bother anybody before, didn't bother your mother before, didn't bother you before. When he started to bother you was in October when you decided to make renovations on the apartment. Those are the objective facts.
I did not make the decision in October, ma'am. I had started the work on the unit earlier in that summer, approximately June or July.
On his unit?
No, because they were still in it. I couldn't do it.
Right.
But that is not the reason why I filed eviction against them at all.
I don't believe
My mother, I have evidence in here that shows that prior to 2003, Mr. Broussard had a record, a pattern of actually tendering checks that came back in SF.
You just told me, madam, you got to keep your story straight. I'm speaking and you're not listening. You just told me that the reason you gave him the notice to quit was not because of rent. You just said to me the reason I gave him the notice to leave was because I felt unsafe. Well, what is it? Rent or unsafe? Think hard. Think hard. Rent, unsafe.
The rent was not the issue.
Okay, now the rent was not the issue. Is that, I'm speaking. The rent was not the issue. Can I see your notice to leave? Do you have it?
It's in there. And here's the...
Just a minute. Shh. Well, you certainly say here that the reason you gave him the notice, madam, was because of rent.
What document is that you're looking at?
Take a look.
I will say, in my defense...
Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Pay attention to me. What's the reason you give in the notice for him to leave?
See, the attorney's office filed this on October the 15th. They made an error, and I have a note in here that verifies that.
Give it to me.
The note?
No,
or
give me the papers back.
The detainer.
Give me the papers back.
The attorney's office acknowledged that they filed the unlawful detainer in error.
When did you file your application for a protective order?
October the 24th.
So, October 15th, they acknowledged they made a mistake, and they withdrew that.
No, not on October the 15th.
Well,
they did not acknowledge that they made the mistake. I did not know that the unlawful detainer had been filed until the morning of October the 21st, and I have a copy of that paper in here.
Oh.
Now, on October the 21st, when I called the attorney's office to say, what are you doing? I called you on October the 2nd to tell you that they had paid their rent in full and to remove the 3-day and maintain
So
the
you
60
told them
day.
that on the 21st of October.
That was the only time I knew that the unlawful detainer had been
Listen
filed.
to me carefully. So now we get to this objective data. The objective fact is that on the 21st, because you knew that you couldn't get them out because they had in fact paid their rent, right?
That's not...
3 days later, you filed a protection order against them. Now let me see the allegations on which you based the protective order. Let me
Here's
see
a
it.
restraining order. Is that what you're asking
I
for?
want to see the underlying allegations where she filed for a protective order. Underlying allegations. Can I see it, please? Description of the conduct. October 2nd, defendant observed plaintiff banging loudly on her back door. Garbage left in the area surrounding plaintiff's residence, and the defendant observed burning rubber in the driveway. October 3rd, he called you a name. October 17th, broken beer bottles left in front of her garage. So all of these things happened, and you filed this 3 days after you told the lawyer you better withdraw that because he paid his rent.
That's because I was hoping he was just going to leave me alone.
Madam, you are full of baloney.
No, ma'am, I am not.
I believe that the reason you got him out and the reason you filed for a violation is because there was no other way to get him out. He had been a tenant. He'd been a tenant for 7 years. You wanted to renovate those 3 apartments, and the only way to get him out was to have him arrested, which is what you did. Judgment for the plaintiff, and the amount requested, $5,000.
That's not the reason why Good, congratulations, you got your money.
Judge Judy.
Good, you got you some money now.
I was trying to get over it, but something inside of me told me don't let her get away with this.
It's breaking beer bottles. Okay, so what? I cleaned it up.
38 years, been a law-abiding citizen, and for her just to say, take him away, like I'm a piece of meat.
It's a lot more pleasant place to live now.
She's had ex-boyfriends vandalize her property, so she felt like she could blame it all on me.
He can move on. I've moved on.
Oh, man, I'm so happy. I love Judge Judy.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Harris versus Moore. Step forward, please.
James and Beverly Harris are suing business owner Ruth Moore for the cost of their wedding china. The Harrises claim workers from Ruth's catering company damaged several of their pieces.
Mr. and Mrs. Harris, according to what I read, you were having a dinner for approximately 20 or 25 people, is that right?
Yes.
And you hired the defendant's firm to provide 2 servers for the dinner. It is your claim that someone from the defendant's organization damaged some serving pieces of yours, and you found one piece, I assume one of those little pieces over there, was those little pieces of glass, in the garbage, thrown away, broken. You want them to pay you $2,321.96. Ms. Moore, how much did the Harrises pay you for the service that you provided?
The Harrises paid the servers directly because they're independent contractors.
And how much did they pay them?
I don't have it in my head.
How much did they pay you?
$110 a piece, plus a gratuity of $25 each.
Have you ever had people serving for you before?
Yes.
From where?
My 3 daughters.
Not your 3 daughters. I'm talking about independent people.
Not on the scale that this party was. I've had my housekeeper help.
Okay. Now, let me see the pieces that you say were damaged.
This is one of the pieces, which is a Dawn water pitcher that is chipped in the front.
Mm-hmm. And what did you use this for?
Water.
And did you place the water pitcher on the table?
The water pitchers, I believe, started off on the table, yes.
And did anyone serve the water other than the servers?
No.
Is that true?
No, not at all.
Stand up.
Thank you.
Tell me your name.
My name is Aaron. I was one of the servers there at the event, and I witnessed 2 of the people not at their table, at the other table closer to the kitchen. I actually noticed one man and one woman, I don't know their names, they're not my friends, but refill their own glasses of water.
Of course they did.
Thank you.
Of course they did. Put that back. Let me see the rest of the damage.
This is a glass bowl that I had purchased just before the event. It has 3 chips in it. This was the piece that came inside of it, which I did not use. This still has the tape mark on it from where the 2 pieces were taped together.
And this was the first time you had used it?
Yes, it is.
Did you wash it first?
Yes.
How did you wash it?
In my sink.
And who washed that bowl?
I did, ma'am.
How did you wash that bowl?
I washed that bowl in her sink by hand.
Okay. You washed the bowl by hand?
Correct.
And she washed the bowl by hand. How do you know she broke your bowl?
Because it was in perfect condition.
How do I know that?
Because I could see that.
How do I know that? What I'm trying to get to you, Mr. and Mrs. Harris, is when you have help in your house, because I read your complaint, when you have help in your house and you have 25 people that you are entertaining, how do I know, for instance, that the piece of glass that one of these pieces that was holding toothpicks that you say you found in the garbage, how do I know that one of your 25 guests didn't do it? How do I know that? I've had people serving before. Sometimes it's a glass chips, sometimes a plate chips, sometimes a serving piece chips. I would never in my life think of suing the servers for $2,500 because I was dumb enough to use a $2,000 pitcher and serve my company with it. And I don't understand where you're coming from. You think that these 2 people should give you $2,000? You paid them $135, they should give you $2,000?
These people were deceitful, Your Honor, and that's what leads me to believe that this happened because of their negligence.
Just a second. You explain to me how they were deceitful, Mr. Harris.
In the letter that we...
Show me the letter that you're talking about.
In the letter that we were sent by one of the servers, she explains that when they're finished with...
Well, let me see the letter you sent her.
We didn't send her a letter. This was a response to my call to the company stating that we had, the next morning when we were putting the items away, that we had found that these dishes were chipped and one of them was missing. So I immediately called the company because I wanted to let them know right away.
I mean, is this what you say, Mr. Harris, is deceitful? Regarding the shot glass, I have no knowledge as to its eventual whereabouts. I recall using 2 toothpicks with an appetizer and washing one, air and drying one, putting it away. I really didn't give it much thought.
No, Your Honor, that's not what I'm referring to.
Well, that's something that's yellow highlighted.
What I'm referring to is where they say that all the items that they washed were laid out on a table for inspection.
They may have been laid out on a table. I don't know whether you inspected them or not.
Right.
But they said that that's what they were laid out.
That's why would they take this one item and put it back into the display case?
Which item?
The broken piece.
Listen,
there were 2 of them that they used.
You sound like Sherlock Holmes. You sound ridiculous, Mr. Harris. You sound ridiculous. She says, I don't know what I did with it. I dried one. Maybe we put it back in the display case. You had 25 people. This was for a Passover dinner, according to what I've read.
That's correct.
How many courses did you serve?
3.
3. So that's a minimum of 75 dishes. So you had at least 100 pieces, one time or another, coming, going, being washed, put down, reused, and whatever. You want them to remember what they did with a little shot glass like that? What, are you out of your minds? Listen, grow up. Grow up. You had company, something got broken. You're 2 nice people who did a very stupid thing by suing them because it's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard.
Your
It's
Honor.
nobody's fault but yours. If you choose to use a $2,000 down pitcher to serve 25 people and it gets chipped, that's your problem. Don't visit it on them. Don't visit it on me. Don't visit it on Bird. And if your daughters do a better job, then next time use your daughters to serve. Your case is dismissed. Goodbye.
রিলিজের পর সেন নতুন রেসলিং কোম্পানি খুলেছেন। আপনারা অনেকেই হয়তো শুনেছেন সেন মিকম্যান ডাব্লিউডব্লিউইতে এর মধ্যে চলা ঝামেলার ব্যাপারে যারা জানেন না তাদের বলে দেই, রিয়াল র্যাম্বেলের পরেই নাকি শেনের রিলিজ করে দেওয়ার হয়। কারণ হিসেবে মনে হয় রায়ান প্রডিউসার হিসেবে ব্যর্থতার, একটি স্ক্রিপ্টের উপর ভেজাল হস্তক্ষেপ। শেনের বিরুদ্ধে অভিযোগ এসেছিল যে রয়্যাল র্যাম্বল নিজেই স্পটলাইনে আনার জন্য তিনি অনেক রেসলার্সের বুকিং খারাপ করেন। এমন রিমাউন্ডিং শোনা গেছে যে শেন নাকি র্যাম্বল চেয়ার 1 নম্বর স্থানে প্রবেশ করতে চেয়েছিলেন যাতে নিজেই হাইলাইট করা যায়, কিন্তু সেটা বাস্তবায়ন হয়নি এবং শেন শেষের দিকে প্রবেশ করেন। এমন রিপোর্টও পাওয়া গেছে যে রয়্যাল র্যাম্বল শেন ও বন্ডি অরটেন প্রবেশের স্থানে তাদের না জানিয়ে অদলবদল করা হয়েছিল। শুরুতে ঠিক হয়েছিল শেন 29 নভেম্বর এবং র্যালির আসবে 28, কিন্তু 28 নভেম্বর শেনের থিমস বাজলে শেন হকচকিয়ে যান। তখন র্যান্ডি তাকে বলে যে হেয়ার কাম দ্য মানি, থিমস সে যেতে পারে না এবং তার শেনকে যেতে হয়। পরে জানা যায় ভিন্স শেন রয়্যাল র্যাম্বল প্ল্যান একদম খুশি ছিল না। শেন র্যাম্বলের ট্রিপটকে নিজের সুবিধা মতো পরিচালনা করতে চেয়েছিল, যার ফলে ভিন্স নিজের দায়িত্ব নিয়ে সেই প্ল্যান পরিবর্তন করে এবং পুনরায় কোম্পানি নিজেই রিলিজ করার সিদ্ধান্ত নেয়। এমন শোনা গেছে ব্লক লেসনার পর্যন্ত শেন সম্পর্কে খুশি ছিল না এবং রয়্যাল র্যাম্বল শেষ যা হবে তা দিয়ে লেগেছিল। ভিন্স নাকি ব্রুসকে সমর্থন করেছিল এই ব্যাপারে মোটের ওপর শেন ডাব্লিউডব্লিউইতে নিজের আইডিয়া পুশ করে শুরু করেছিল। শেষ পর্যন্ত ভিন্স ম্যাকম্যান এবং ডাব্লিউডব্লিউই এর অন্যতম ক্রিয়েটিভ ভরা শেন ক্রিপ্টকে পরিবর্তন করে নিশ্চিত করেছিল যেন রয়্যাল র্যাম্বল শেন ম্যাকম্যান অধীনে না চলে। পরবর্তীতে মনে হচ্ছে শেনকে চুপচাপ রিলিজ দেওয়া হয়েছে এবং স্ক্রিপ্ট রাইটারের শেনকে নিয়ে করা প্ল্যান, যেমন রতে পাঠানো এই এলিমেন্টস চেম্বার খোলার এবং রেসলিওমানদের সব প্ল্যান ক্যান্সেল করে দিয়েছে। শেন ও এমএসসি হয়তো আর কোনোদিন ডাব্লিউডব্লিউইতে রিটার্ন করবেন না, করলেও আগের বাকিদের তাদের সম্পর্কে স্বাভাবিক হওয়ার অপেক্ষা করতে হবে। এমত অবস্থায় ডাব্লিউডব্লিউই এর প্রাক্তন স্ক্রিপ্ট রাইটার এবং ক্রিয়েটিভ টিমের সদস্য ভিন্সি রোসলার্স একটা টুইটারের মাধ্যমে শেন ম্যাকম্যানকে নিজের প্রমোশনের খেলার প্রস্তাব দিয়েছিল। রুশো ইঙ্গিত করেছে শেনের জন্য একদম ঠিক সময়, সঠিক এক্সপোজিশনে এবং অর্থাৎ সমর্থন এবং রেসলার্স কোম্পানি খুলে দেওয়ার রূপে ভিসা ম্যাকম্যান টেনি খানের উদ্দেশ্য ব্যঙ্গ করে বলেছেন, এটা শুধু বলে রেখেছি, তবে হয়তো এখনো শেন ম্যাকম্যান নিজের রেসলিং প্রমোশন শুরু করা উচিত। তার কাছে যথেষ্ট অভিজ্ঞতা, অর্থ কৌশল ও জ্ঞান আছে। এছাড়াও শেন অন্য দুইজনের বড় প্রমোটরের মধ্যে একটি। মার্ক এম রেসলিং ফ্যানের রেসলিং ক্রিপ্টেস কি জানেন না, এবং অবশ্যই এই বদনাম তো নয়, এটি করলে সমর্থনের প্রথম আমি তাকে সাপোর্ট করব। শেন ম্যাকম্যান ছোটবেলা থেকে রেসলিং ইন্ডাস্ট্রির মধ্যে বেড়ে উঠেছে এবং এক সময় তাকে ভিন্স ম্যাকম্যান উত্তরাধিকারী হিসেবে গণ্য করা হয়েছে, কিন্তু বর্তমানে ডাব্লিউডব্লিউই এর অভ্যন্তরীণ পরিস্থিতি একদমই আলাদা। এখন আপনাদের কি মনে হয়, বাস্তবসম্মতভাবে কি শেন নিজের কোনো রেসলিং কোম্পানি খুলতে পারবে? কমেন্টে জানান। ব্রেকিং ব্রোকিং লোসনারের র্যাম্বল জেতার কথা ছিলই না, কথাই ছিল না। রেসলিং জগতে চমকে দেওয়ার মতো নিউজ শোনা যাচ্ছে, ব্রোক লেসনার নাকি র্যাম্বল জেতার কোনো কথাই ছিল না। পিডাব্লিউ ইনস্টাইল রিপোর্ট অনুযায়ী রয়্যাল র্যাম্বলে 2022-এ জেতার কথা ছিল আসলে রিডলি এর। সেই রিপোর্টে আরও বলা হয়েছে রয়্যাল র্যাম্বলটা অনুষ্ঠিত হওয়ার সপ্তাহখানেক আগে স্ক্রিপ্ট অনেক ধরনের পরিবর্তন করা হয়েছে, যার মধ্যে নাকি মেইন ইভেন্ট র্যাম্বল ম্যাচও বাদ যায়নি। শেষ পর্যন্ত ডিসিশন নেওয়া হয়েছিল যে ব্লক সারপ্রাইজ এন্টার্স করে রয়্যাল র্যাম্বলের বিজয় হবে। রিপোর্টে বলা হয় প্রথম দ্বার ভাইপার বডি আউটেন্ট জেতার জন্য কথা শুরু হয়, কিন্তু পরবর্তী ইডালের বেছে নেওয়া হয় উইন হিসেবে। শেষ মুহূর্ত পর্যন্ত গিয়ে তাকে পাল্টিয়ে ব্রুককে জেতানো হয়। প্রসঙ্গত উল্লেখিত রিডল ব্র্যামট্রপ রিমস পার্টনার, তারা দুজন মিলে আরকে ব্রম টিম তৈরি করে। কিছুদিন আগেই তার ওটিস গ্যালারের টিমের কাছে র ট্যাগ ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউ চ্যাম্পিয়ন খেতাব হারায়। মজার ব্যাপার হলো বিটস ইনকান্ট ব্রুক লেসনার্স জিতেই তাদের 2 সপ্তাহ বিজয়ী এলিমেন্ট করে রয়্যাল রাম্বল। সেনার 3 মিনিটের মধ্যে 4 জনকে পরে ডিউ এলিমেন্ট করে দ্বিতীয়বারের মতো রয়্যাল রাম্বল জিতে রেসলম্যানিয়া 38-এর মেইন ইভেন্টের নিজের জায়গা করে পাকড়ানো আশা করা হচ্ছে। রেসলম্যানিয়া গিয়ে ইনভেন্টর চ্যাম্পিয়ন রেসলম্যানিয়ার মাধ্যমে চ্যাং চং পং চ্যাং চাং প্রান্তন রেসলারের বিরুদ্ধে প্রতারণার অভিযোগ। প্রান্তন ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউই এবং টিএনএ সুপারস্টার এবং ইউনাইটেড স্টেট চ্যাম্পিয়ন কেন অ্যান্ডারসন, যাকে আমরা মিস্টার কিন্ডি নামে চিনতাম, তার নামের গুরুত্বপূর্ণ অভিযোগ আনা হয়েছে। অ্যান্ডারসন নিজের একটি রেসলিং স্কুল চালাতেন যার নাম ছিল স্কুল অফ পারসোনাল ওয়ারস্টিং। তো এই স্কুলের ছাত্রদের প্রতারণার অভিযোগ আনা হয়েছে তার বিরুদ্ধে। তার ভিতরে আনা অভিযোগে বলা হয়েছে যে প্রতিষ্ঠান অনেক দিন ধরে বন্ধ আছে এবং এলাকার অন্যতম জিম খুলে গেলেও প্রতিষ্ঠান এখনো খুলেনি। এমন অভিযোগ আছে যে 2 বছর কেটে যাওয়ার পর অনেক ছাত্র কোনো রকম ট্রেনিং নেওয়া শুরু করা হয়নি নাকি। অনেক ছাত্র বলেছেন যে অ্যান্ডারসন তাদের সাথে খুব কম যোগাযোগ রাখতেন এবং নতুন করে আর সে প্রতিষ্ঠান খুলবেন বলে মনে হয় না। এই সন্ধ্যায় আগুনে ঘি ঢালার মতো কাজ করছে। অ্যান্ডারস স্কুলের ওয়েবসাইট ডাউন হয়। তার প্রতিষ্ঠানে ভর্তি হওয়ার এক ছাত্র বলছেন যে অর্থ আমি তাকেই দিয়েছি, তা অনেকের কাছে খুব বেশি না মনে হলো আমার কাছে সেটা সারা জীবনের সঞ্চয় এবং আমার স্বপ্ন বটে। দিন শেষে আমি সেটি ফেরত পেতে চাই। আমার স্বপ্ন ভেঙে চুরমার হয়ে গেছে, কিন্তু আশা করি আমি আমার টাকাটা ফেরত পাবো। অ্যান্ডারসন 2005 সালে কেলিং ক্যান্ডি নামে ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউই এর মেইন রোস্টার ডেবিট করেন। তার গিমিকটি ছিল অনেক ইউনিক। সে নিজের নাম নিজেই বারবার চিৎকার করে আনস্টাইন্স করে। অ্যান্ডারসন ডাব্লিউডাব্লিউই ইউএস চ্যাম্পিয়ন ছাড়াও একবার মানি ইন দ্য ব্যাংক জিতেছিলেন এবং একটা মুভিতেও অভিনয় করেছিলেন, কিন্তু সর্বশেষ হয়ে যায় যখন সে দ্য ভাইপার র্যাম্বিং উপর মুভি দিতে গিয়ে বজ করে এবং সে কারণে তাকে ফায়ার করা হয় এবং সে ইম্প্যাক্ট ওয়েডিং 2 10 ওয়ার্ল্ড চ্যাম্পিয়ন হয়। আপনার কি মনে হয় মিস্টার কন্ডি কি আসলে দোষী? কমেন্টে জানাবেন।